Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. Thank you all for being here. I know we're a minute late. I almost went early, but no one's going to believe the excuse, but the camera was being weird. No one's going to believe it, but it is the truth. The camera was being weird. It was like zoomed in, and when I tried to zoom out, the thing got weird, and so it is what it is. But it was 8:44. I was ready, and then I was like, wait a second, this camera does not look it. But it's like dog ate my homework. No one cares about the excuses. So we're here. We're live. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are red, unfortunately. Yesterday we were green. Today we're red. The day before that we were red. The day before that we were green. It is a game of musical chairs in the stock market, and there are reasons for why we're red. There's always some reason. That reason is in this time obviously involved with a different headline that has come out about this war, which we will talk about. It's a pretty ugly headline. I don't know if it's just another he said, she said type of game, which is why the markets are going the opposite direction, because now they believe what the other person said versus what they believed yesterday. But S&P 500 right there, basically down 1% of the pre-markets. I mean, the reason it's ugly is because we are inching towards levels that we just aren't supposed to lose, which are the 650s. We're at 651 right now. We haven't lost that all week. Ever since Sunday, we fell to 641 in the pre-markets, and then we rebounded after Trump had that 5-day extension, which, by the way, we have 48 hours left on that 120-hour extension that Trump gave to be bombing power plants. So I guess we'll see what happens in the next 48 hours if we get another extension. But Bitcoin's losing 70,000. Trade Desk is down. Nvidia's down. IGV, SanDisk, memory stocks, Microsoft, which we'll talk more about, losing 370 in the pre-market. South Korea, Seagate, Western Digital, Adobe Software, Reddit, Q's, the space names, everything, Palantir, Robinhood, Rocket Lab, S&P 500, again, everything's down based on these headlines. And so we will talk and discuss what's going on, why it's happening. And we will get into it. We will indeed get into it, but it's something new to get into every single day to try to figure out why the broader direction of the market either goes green or red as soon as we wake up. So let's get into it. Thank you again for being here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Excited to see everybody at the LA meetup. We will not be doing a market close today, because after the market open, like after 2 hours after the market open, I will be headed out to the airport. Steve was at the airport this morning, and he confirmed it was ugly. It was a definitely 3 to 4 hour wait. So I imagine in Newark, which I think he went to JFK. Newark and New Jersey are relatively the same, so it's definitely going to be a long wait. I'll let you guys know how the airport situation is, but we'll be getting there early to try to deal with everything we got going on. Charles, good morning. Swipe, good morning. Steve, what's up? Good morning. Good morning. Work and Hustle, good morning. SJ Tavares, what's up? Peter, Lady D, Mike, Ray, June, Derek, Mary, Michelle. Thank you all for being here today. Thomas, what's up? As my coach used to say, if you're 1 minute early, you're still 14 minutes late. That is a very good saying. I'm beneficial. Thank you all for being here. Danny, hello to you. Josiah, Michael, Bobby Lee, Mexican Money. I love it. Mexican Money. Let's get started. Let's get freaking started with what we've got going on. Hollis says LAX is a nightmare. My bag went to Arizona. Goodness, dude, my bag got lost once when I went to Germany. They sent it to Spain. This was when I was in high school, and that was the first time I ever experienced like my bag getting lost. It was an international trip, so it was kind of weird. But yeah, ever since then, United usually is okay on some of this stuff. All right, so let's get into it. What did Trump tweet today that messed up the markets? Well, the markets were kind of already red before he tweeted this, but then he tweeted this, and the markets decided to go a lot more red. Here's what he said. The Iranian negotiators are very different and strange. They are begging us to make a deal, which they should be doing since they have been militarily obliterated with zero chance of a comeback, and yet they publicly state that they are now looking at a proposal, or quote, only looking at a proposal. Wrong, with 3 exclamation marks. They better get serious soon before it is too late, because once that happens, there is no turning back. Okay, so this is what is getting the markets mad for those that are here. Trump is doing a couple things right here. Number one, he is denying the Iranians' denial of only looking at the proposal. So what happened yesterday? Yesterday, Carolyn Leavitt, Secretary of the White House, confirmed to us that the White House did indeed send a framework proposal, whatever you want to call it, start of a negotiation. There's a lot of people saying that was fake news. They were doubting it. The White House literally confirmed yesterday, yes, we sent them something. However, they refused to confirm exactly what was in the merits of the thing that they sent, but they did confirm it. And we'll take a look at that clip in a second. Trump is now upset that the Iranians are like, basically the Iranian response to this was, well, we looked at the proposal and we think it's full of shit. And Trump's argument is like, Okay, they're lying to everybody. They absolutely do not think it's full of shit. They want to make a deal. In fact, he says they're begging us to make a deal. Now, obviously, Trump could be lying here as well. This is why I'm saying it's a game of he said, she said. But his argument is that they want to make a deal. They don't want to continue the war because they have been militarily obliterated. And the Iranians are like, yeah, good luck with this crazy deal of getting us to get rid of all of our nukes. Like, it's never going to happen. Who's right? Who's wrong? I don't think the market even fully understands that yet. But yesterday, the market believed that Trump was more right and the ceasefire was more possible. That's why we went green. I think today the market believes that Trump is wrong, oil's up, and now we're going red. And that is the seesaw nature of the market that we're in right now.
Thank you, Caroline. Just within the past few hours, Iranian state TV has said that Iran has rejected the U.S.'s 15-point plan to end the war. What's the White House's response to that? And have these talks hit a dead end?
They have not. Talks continue. They are productive, as the president said on Monday, and they continue to be. However, I saw a 15-point plan that was floated in the media. I would caution reporters in this room from reporting about speculative points or speculative plans from anonymous sources. The White House never confirmed that full plan. There are elements of truth to it, but some of the stories I read were not entirely factual. So I am not going to negotiate on behalf of the president here at the podium. What I will tell you is these talks are ongoing. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details that have been exchanged between the United States and Iran at this time.
Well, thank you, Caroline. Just within the past few hours.
So Carolyn Levitt basically saying, yes, there was some type of deal that was sent, but she's not confirming the content of that deal. The two biggest points of that deal is that Iran would give up their nukes and that the U.S. would get rid of sanctions, which, again, are some pretty crazy elements to this deal if that were to take place. But the lack of a commitment on the subject and content matter of the deal, only the acceptance that there was something sent, along with the Iranians' rejection of everything that was sent, is why the market's just like, okay, once again, we have no freaking clue what is happening. And crude right there, wow, it's at 94.40. I didn't even see that. I thought it was still at 92. So that's bouncing up, which is not a good sign. VG is up. Chevron is up. All your oil and gas plays are up. And that is the start of this Thursday morning. We got Trump basically saying that the Iranians are lying, the Iranians saying that the USA is lying, and no one exactly knows what's wrong. And then you had this weird thing happen yesterday. The White House posted a video on X and then deleted it immediately. Here is the video. It's 4 seconds.
It's launching soon, right? It's launching soon, right?
There's a woman in the background saying, it's cool, it's launching soon, right? And then they deleted it, which is getting a lot of people to be like, was that a intern who accidentally posted something? I mean, look, I've posted a video on X before. It's not that easy to accident. You have to press post. You have to go to your camera roll. You have to pick a photo. Like there's a couple steps involved to actually posting. It's not like you're calling someone or you can butt dial them or something. And then after they deleted it, the White House posted another 4-second video. And this is what they posted. This one they did not delete. Dude, is this some horror movie shit? Like, what is going on? This is the freaking White House. This is not some random news gossip account on X. It's a black video that has a ding, and then there's the graphic. I mean, there's the flag in the graphic. And I don't know what type of messages they're trying to send. There were some people theorizing that it's the launch of a meme coin. It's like, if they launch a meme coin in the midst of all this, like I will lose my shit. I think a lot of people would lose their shit. But I don't think it's a meme coin. I'm hoping it's not a meme coin. But it's just weird. It's like, what is this? What exactly is this right now? That was Matt Money? Yeah, maybe it was our White House quant who ended up doing this. So, I mean, look, it's confusing. As someone who's trying to analyze in the context of markets, I have no idea what to expect. Maybe they're trying to say, I don't even know, dude. How do you put like an iPhone ding together with the American flag? I don't know if they're trying to. I don't know. I don't even know. If you have a theory, let me know. But I don't know what that means in the context of the war, the military. Or they're trying to say they're going to bomb somewhere soon. But then why would they have an iPhone ding? Like they've already made videos showing strikes with Nintendo music in the background. So it's not like they're afraid of showing that stuff. Long Apple, yeah, maybe they're trying to say buy the iPhone. I don't know. It's confusing, but in the midst of a war to post something like that, I don't know. I hope we get some more updates, but there's not a lot of they haven't posted anything else since that. So that was 10 hours ago. That was the last thing they posted, and I guess hopefully we'll get an update the next time they post something, and we'll see what's going on. So that is what you got. S&P 500 down. If you are just joining, unfortunately, we got some headlines this morning that basically feels like the war is accelerating. And by the way, after this Trump tweet, which again, if you're just joining, Trump basically said if the Iranians don't give us a deal, then we're going to, I mean, he says there's no going back. And what he's saying right here is very consistent with the Axios reporting. So this is the other big reason I think the market is down in the pre-market. So this is as per Axios. The Pentagon is developing military operations for a, quote, final blow in Iran that could include the use of ground forces in a massive bombing campaign. Maybe that ding on the iPhone is to signal there's going to be a bomb happening or something. Like, I don't know. But given what Trump said, which is that if the Iranians don't accept this deal, there's quote unquote no going back. Maybe this Axios reporting is correct that the Pentagon is developing military operations. We've already seen so many headlines about ground troops to, ultimately take over the entire region. So the four options would include invading or blockading the Karg Island, invading Larak, an island that helps Iran solidify its control of the Strait of Hormuz, seizing the strategic island of Abu Musa and two smaller islands which lie near the western entrance to the Strait of Hormuz and are controlled by Iran but also claimed by the UAE, and blocking or seizing ships that are exporting Iranian oil on the eastern side of the Strait of Hormuz. Notice that all of these potential four final blow, quote unquote, options are rooted in unlocking the Strait of Hormuz or unlocking more crude oil exports, because obviously the price of oil is up, and that is like the number one thing it seems to be that the administration cares about. So I really wonder if this diplomatic stuff is going to work based on this idea of what Trump is talking about, or if a lot of it is just he said, she said in the midst of trying to calm down the credit markets and the oil markets before they actually go in for their quote unquote final blow. And for the people that are saying this is all BS and they're getting ready for a final blow and like Trump is just saying whatever he's saying to calm down the markets, I think there's not a complete dismissal of that claim. And the reason I wouldn't completely dismiss that claim is because, and we talked about this yesterday, the Iranians do not like negotiating with Kushner and Witkoff. They're not fans of them. This is and this has been widely reported. I think they feel they both got backstabbed by Kushner and Witkoff in the initial diplomatic negotiations, because I think they tried to put forth the deal. Then Kushner and Witkoff went back to Trump and they were like, they're not going to negotiate. And then Trump said, all right, let's go in. And then Trump 2 days ago mentioned that JD and Rubio are the ones that are negotiating now. And when he said that, I was like, wait a second. He's never said Rubio and JD Vance are negotiating. He's always mentioned Kushner and Witkoff. This time he explicitly mentioned two people that are not those people, which maybe means that those two are like the decoys to be able to create an illusion of negotiation while the U.S. is getting ready to have a real military operation. But then it begs the question, does Trump actually want to put boots on the ground and extend this for a longer period of time? Or does Trump think if we put boots on the ground, it will be the quickest way to resolve everything that's going on? I think given the history of American interventionism, when you put boots on the ground, it is actually the non-quickest way to get things resolved. So, I mean, there's a lot of floating ideas and conflicting narratives going back and forth. S&P right here, obviously negative based on these ideas. But that's what we got with our updates on the war. And yeah, I guess we'll find out, guys. I guess soon enough. I don't think this is going to take another couple of weeks to. I think in the next, I would say in the next week, we are going to know if like boots are actually going on the ground, if there's actually any serious deal. I would be surprised if over the next 2 weeks it's just he said, she said back and forth, because the oil markets and the credit markets, the 10-year is still at 4.3, are not going to allow that. Like something's going to break before that happens, and I think that's when you either see military action or some resemblance of a deal. And I guess we will find out over the long term if this plays out. I don't think this is a trick. Negotiations 101 is never trick negotiations for attack. Maybe, see, the only difference, the only different thing here, and this is the most obvious thing, is that when Trump was negotiating with tariffs, he had all the leverage because he could say one thing and the tariffs are gone, the tariffs are overturned, or he can, say we created some level of reciprocity with us in South Korea and they're going to invest $100 billion. You could just make shit up and then move on. With this, you've gotten yourself into a much larger quagmire, because now you have Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Qatar and Israel. Everyone's involved here. And you can't just easily trick yourself out of the negotiation. So I don't know. Time will tell. But that is the update on the war, and we'll see how the market reacts to that. As of now, we are indeed going red. S&P 500, 651. 75. All right, let's get into some other market stuff that we got to talk about. Before I do the green or red poll, I'm going to put a new poll in the chat, and I'm very curious to see what people think of this because I think it is now turning into. I asked this question on X last night, and the poll got 18,000 votes. So I think it's a relatively large sample size. Which one would you buy right now for 1 year? Microsoft or Nvidia? 1 year. So 1 year from now, March 2027, which one would you buy? I'm very curious to see what people say. I'll give it a couple minutes before I show the results of the poll yesterday. Microsoft is now at levels from 2023. Nvidia is putting up the most growth we've ever seen in the history of companies at this size being able to accelerate at 80% year over year, trying to get 15 times forward earnings. It's looking kind of like a joke. So you've got a lot of people saying, all right, Nvidia looks freaking cheap. Then you got a lot of people saying, wait a second, Microsoft doesn't have the cyclicality stuff associated with it. And it's in a 31% drawdown. It was at 550 back in July of 2025. This thing looks cheap. And I wonder what people are really thinking. Paul Atkins said SEC investigation, SEC innovation exception on tokenization coming in weeks. Yeah, the SEC chair, Paul Atkins, who's like super laissez-faire about everything crypto, he was on CNBC yesterday and he basically said, I think the quote was, we will not do regulation by enforcement anymore. Basically saying, people can do whatever they want in the crypto markets and we're going to make sure to at least give them a framework to be able to abide by it, which is why the Clarity Act and all this stuff, these are the 4 years for it to get passed because we don't know who the next SEC chair is going to be, but if this guy is, if the next chair is going to be more aggressive towards crypto and prediction markets, then these are the next 3 years to try to get some of those policies in. So bullish crypto, bullish Coinbase, bullish Robinhood, but markets are bearish right now. So that's why those assets aren't really holding up, especially crypto. So this was the result of the poll yesterday. 53% said Nvidia, 47% said Microsoft. You guys in the chat, 64-36, so call it 65-35 on Nvidia versus Microsoft. So Nvidia's winning, but it's not winning as much as I thought it was going to win. I thought this would be more 70-30, and on almost 19,000 votes, it's 55-45. So, and I get it because Microsoft's cheap. I personally would pick Nvidia. I just think the catalyst for the upside on Nvidia, because the growth is there, is more obvious, even if it is cyclical and the cycle only has 3 years left. Still, the stock should not be that cheap. Microsoft, I think, is stuck in the IGV drawdown. It's the largest holding in the software sector. And although I don't think it's really affected by Claude Code or anything like that, it is being seen like it is. 369 now on Microsoft in the pre-markets. And so I think Microsoft is a wonderful buy over the next 5 years. I don't know if Nvidia is a wonderful buy over the next 5 years. I mean, I think so. But what if CapEx goes away? I don't know. That's the easy bear case you could point to. I don't think there's a massive, easily bear case you could point to for Microsoft because the business is not rooted in selling chips, right? They have other layers. Now, obviously, if NVIDIA slows down, maybe Azure Compute slows down, you can make that argument. But I understand the reason people want NVIDIA for the short term, Microsoft for the long term. But if the time frame is 1 year, which was the question, I would pick NVIDIA as well. NVIDIA right there down 1.22%. In the pre-market. Meta unveils Tribe V2 predictive foundation model. Meta stock is, 583 pre-market. So there were a bunch of headlines about Meta yesterday, including the lawsuit for child exploitation that they pled guilty to, the Reality Labs layoffs that are now going to potentially accelerate, and you have Meta unveiling Tribe V2 predictive foundation model. I never even heard of Tribe V1. I actually have never heard of Tribe as one of their models. I know Avocado also got delayed, which got the market to be upset. Oh, wow. They introduced this in August 2015. Tribe is an AI that predicts the brain's response to visual content without running physical scans. Today, we're announcing Tribe V2. Okay, here's the release. A foundation model trained to predict how the human brain responds to almost any sight or sound. Based on our Algonauts 2025 award-winning architecture, Tribe V2 draws on 500 hours of fMRI recordings of 700 plus people to record a digital twin of neural activity and enable zero-shot predictions for new subjects, languages, and tasks. Okay, so Meta is basically saying we created a model to figure out exactly how you are going to react when you see Facebook and Instagram ads, so that we can optimize those ads so well that there is no way you will scroll past them and you will have to buy. I mean, that's basically what I'm getting out of this. Because what else would they be using this for? Bullish, baby. More advertising. Meta's a one-trick pony. I think that's kind of why the market's upset about it. They only know how to do ads, and that's what's working. And I guess that's what's going to continue to work. So It is kind of dystopian though, but there you go. That's what you got with Meta and advertising. Jobs report this morning. We got jobless claims. It wasn't that bad. Initial jobless claims rose in the U.S. by 5,000 from the previous month to 210,000 on the third week. Expectations were 205. Again, we are not seeing enough deterioration in the labor market in the raw data to say that we need to cut rates. Now, obviously, yes, there's a lot of headlines that are bad with Meta and Amazon and UPS and Intel cutting jobs, but until people start filing for unemployment, like 210,000 people filed for unemployment, that is relatively normal. In fact, that's lower than the 2-year moving average. We need 250, 275, 300, 350,000 people a week to be filing for unemployment, which is kind of where we had during the COVID and 2008 crisis. We're not there yet. So, I get why the Fed constantly sees this data and is like, look, we think the labor market's an issue, but we can't really cut because not everyone's losing their job yet. But then when you have oil going up, I mean, quite literally the word of the next month should be stagflation. Higher oil, higher inflation, and the growth, I don't know. I mean, if we have a 4% inflation print or even a 3.5% inflation print, which we're not that far away from. In fact, we were above that on CPI. The import prices went completely under the radar yesterday. I mean, I mentioned it that we were 125 basis points, 1.25% above the expectation for import prices. That's not good. That's inflationary. I don't know if GDP growth is going to be enough in Q2 to counteract the ability for inflation, which means we're going to end up in a stagflationary environment unless this inflation crisis goes down, which it's not really a crisis yet, but obviously the perception is it's a crisis with these higher oil prices. And then not only that, you got Mr. Bernie Sanders and AOC that are completely trying to destroy GDP growth. And this is not a political statement. This is just objectively. If we limit the capacity for data centers to grow, we are going to have some issues with GDP. They introduced a bill yesterday called the AI Data Center Moratorium, where we stop building data centers.
Industrial revolution did. And it's not just what AI companies are saying, it's what they are doing. This year alone, 4 major AI companies are expected to spend roughly $670 billion building data centers and tens of billions more on research and development. Despite the extraordinary importance of this issue and its impact on every man, woman, and child in this country, AI has received far too little serious discussion here in our nation's capital. I fear that Congress is totally unprepared for the magnitude of the changes that are already taking place. While Congress has not paid attention or enough attention to this issue, the American people have. According to a recent poll, 79% of voters are concerned that the government does not have a plan to protect workers from AI job losses. That same poll also found that 56% of voters, majority of voters, are concerned about losing their job or having someone in their family lose their jobs in the next year, not in the next 10 years, in the next year.
Now, look, we as investors, I think the majority of us probably disagree with the idea that we would put a moratorium on data centers because we're invested in all this shit. And if you watch the show every day, if you keep up with the markets, you know how unbelievably cruel. Like if we didn't have ChatGPT in 2022, we'd probably be in a 4-year bear market or something along a sort of market that's flat, because the literal only thing that created productivity, efficiency gains, influence in the market, retail sentiment, everything goes back to AI or some idea, perception that AI was going to be a big thing. You don't have Anthropic growing $6 billion in 1 month, growth we've never heard of, unless we have ChatGPT and we start this genesis of a revolution. So I don't know what 2022 to 2026 would have looked like in the broader markets. I don't even know if people would be engaged in the markets if you didn't have stocks that actually went up. But the only reason they went up is because we had a bull market that was led by a catalyst of AI, and that bull market led to increased earnings growth, and that earnings growth then allowed companies to paint a picture of, hey, you should buy our stock. That goes back to data centers. So all of us are like, man, if we were to stop that growth, which by the way, many experts have said 50% of the GDP growth over the past 3 years has been related to data center spend. If we didn't have that 50%, we would probably be growing GDP maybe 1.5% over the past 3 years. And that's kind of optimistic because again, how much CapEx investment would have actually gone into the economy if we didn't have data centers? That's scary to think what happens if our entire economy is propped up. Basically, I mean, I don't even think it's an exaggeration to say this. Our entire economy is propped up on this idea that AI is going to be beneficial in the future, which is why even if you hate Sam Altman or you don't like Dario from Anthropic, you need to hope their companies succeed. And so far they are, and they're growing at the fastest rate in history, because that keeps the potential of this revolution continuing. If we were to stop that, obviously that wouldn't be good for GDP. Having said that, that's our perspective of people that are in the markets every day. The perspective that Bernie's talking about, which is very valuable as a well-rounded human being to understand different perspectives, is, look, a lot of people are afraid they're going to lose their jobs. A lot of people are afraid that this data center spend is going to raise electricity prices. A lot of people are saying, well, wait a second, I've been working at the factory for 30 years, and then I see the robot at the White House, which happened yesterday, which was also a freaking crazy moment. Did not know this was going to happen. And I think my job's going to be commoditized by a robot. And essentially, Bernie is talking for those people, which a lot of us might disagree with, but those people would want some of their elected officials to make the case that Mark Zuckerberg and Larry Ellison getting rich off this AI data center spend is not worth them losing their jobs. Now, for us that own Meta and Oracle, like, okay, cool, Zucks gets rich, so do I. And that's our mindset. And that's why the investing community is fundamentally different from regular people. It's like, you're not upset that Zucks makes, like a couple $1 billion every 5% that Meta goes up, because you might make a couple $1,000 every 5% Meta goes up, and that couple thousand is relevant to your life. It allows you to pay the bills. It makes you feel more wealthy. But people that aren't invested in it, they don't give a shit. And I think that's who Bernie's talking about. This was the figure robot with Melania yesterday at the White House.
Thank you, First Lady Melania Trump, for inviting me to the White House. It is an honor to be at Fostering the Future Together's Global Coalition inaugural meeting. I'm Figure 3, a humanoid built in the United States of America. I am grateful to be part of this historic movement to empower children with technology and education. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Yokoso. Bienvenue. Bem-vindos. Ahlan wa sahlan.
So this was kind of crazy. Now, this was crazy for a couple reasons. Number one is, why the hell was this not the Tesla Optimus? Like, that's the first question. Like what? Elon's pretty freaking close to Trump, even after their beef. Like, if they were going to say, hey, we're looking for a robot to be in the White House to like introduce this, new product to the masses with the First Lady, why did Optimus not get the phone call? Or maybe they did get the phone call and they rejected it. I don't know. But number two, it goes to Bernie Sanders' point, which is everyone's seeing this thing and they're thinking, oh my goodness, like this robot revolution is happening. And if you're a blue collar worker thinking that your job is going to be commoditized, you start to get a bit nervous. And what does that nervousness lead to? Anxiety. What does that anxiety leads to? Well, we saw it in New York City back in November. It leads to Mamdani winning. And so I don't think people, even if you disagree with Bernie and AOC, should dismiss the argument they're saying, because the argument they're saying will resonate with a lot of people who don't give a shit about Figure or Tesla or NVIDIA GPUs and don't even know, why LLMs are relevant. Like, they're just living their daily life. And if their daily life gets disrupted by some technological force that has fundamentally changed everything, hasn't made their life better, it's made their life worse by taking away their job, then they will seek a political solution to that problem. My opinion on this, I think it's quite obvious. I think I agree with a lot of you guys, is that, you can't stop technology, and we couldn't stop Uber just because the taxis were not going to be as favorable anymore, because Uber created a lot of innovation for everyone. But, AI feels like it's on a different scale, and that different scale obviously is affecting a lot of different people. What was the jobs report? Jobless claims were 205,000 versus 210. Market's not really reacting to that too much, but that was the jobs data this morning. The real reason the market is upset is because of a Trump tweet that basically said, we are trying to negotiate, but the Iranians don't want to. And if they don't, we are going to essentially blow them up. So if you're just joining, that's why we are red. These people just need to learn a new skill or career to stay relevant. Accountants are done. Yeah. And see, again, as a politician, it's hard to say that, right? Because it's hard to get votes by saying, well, just learn a new skill. And it's like, dude, if you've been driving a taxi your whole life, you can't, at least when you switch to Uber, you're still driving, but you can't just learn a new skill. But nonetheless, I think that is that the only solution is you have to be relevant in an AI-driven economy. And there's hundreds of millions of people that might not want to embrace being ready and might not have the infrastructure provided by the government to be able to get ready, which is where you get the Bernies of the world saying, let's just stop building. But again, the reason I think it's just an absurd idea is you can't just stop building data centers. We barely have 1 billion people using these LMs. Just like we only have, 4.5 billion people using the internet. There's 8 billion people on the planet. So there's still 3 billion people, 3.5 billion people that aren't on the internet. There's only 1 billion, and maybe I don't even think that's 1 billion daily. I mean, ChatGPT has 910 million weekly, but we are not at the point where we have 3-4 billion people using these LLMs that are in the enterprise, commercial, robots, self-driving, that's causing all this compute. We will eventually, because it's making the world better and it's making everyone more efficient. And at least that's the promise of the AI thesis, which means we're going to need more data centers. So like pausing that doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, to directly counter Bernie's claim, and just from a debate tactic that you could use to find the real flaw in his argument, if he cares so much about the least fortunate of society, the number one thing that hurts the least fortunate is the economy collapsing, right? Like investors will feel the pain of it, but investors that have disposable income will be able to weather the storm. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and the economy collapses, it's really bad. If GDP growth collapses, which then obviously will cause the stock market to collapse, and then what are businesses going to do? They're going to start firing a lot of people. And when they start firing a lot of people, then there you go. Amazon doesn't need 2 million workers because they don't have enough people ordering packages because everyone's losing their job. And so people get fired. Like it all goes back to broader GDP growth. And if we don't have GDP growth, which the only thing that's holding up GDP growth right now is the data center. That's why the Big Beautiful Bill was so focused on those zoning restrictions to make data centers and CapEx investment more tenable, which is one of the good parts about the Big Beautiful Bill. Then the people that Bernie cares about the most are going to get affected, which is like the fundamental disagreement I have with his point, while also acknowledging, like if AI, immediately changes your life for the worse, then the politicians are going to react to try to make things better by stopping the progress. I just don't think stopping the progress is the right idea. So time will tell. Time will tell. But that's what we got going on with Bernie today. The political debate on this stuff is going to get a lot more intense as we get into the future. Inside Square, thanks for the super chat. People that say accounting is done don't know what accountants actually do. Most of the work is done outside of spreadsheets. Yeah, and look, I don't think lawyers and accountants are gone or they're done or anything like that. I just think there are going to be more and more people that use an LLM and do this stuff themselves. They might want to get some counsel and try to understand this stuff, but like there is going to be a bit of a shift. That doesn't mean these jobs are completely gone. If you believe Dario, these jobs are. I mean, the Anthropic CEO is like not holding back when he says software engineers are done and all this. And I know people think that's crazy, but it's not me saying it. It's the Anthropic CEO saying it. Maybe he's being too humoristic, but at the end of the day, it does feel like, there will be a difference. And again, maybe we take the accountant subject out of it, but there are real examples. Like if you were to hire someone to help you design thumbnails, that job is gone because you can go to Gemini and design your own thumbnail. And now, obviously, if you want something very specific and you need like that, yes, you can hire a designer and have someone, create some marketing material for you. But at its core, if you're just a random person that like needs a thumbnail for their YouTube video, you can go to Gemini. I mean, we see Steve and Matt do this all the time with their fancy thumbnail. Like they're not paying someone for that. They just make it, and Google subsidizes it with their CapEx. I should say Matt and Steve subsidize it because they buy Google stock. So there are jobs that if they're not completely losing their demand, the demand is significantly decreasing. And that means if you're a graphic designer, you've got to really stand out and be really good to continue getting business. And I think that's where you see more and more of the business landscape starting to change. Wall Street Journal, most investors see a ceasefire by end of April. Deutsche Bank survey shows, that's what the poly market traders are saying as well. They think by the end of April, we get a ceasefire, or at least some end to the war, which I hope the insiders trading that stuff are right about this, even if they're trading on inside information. Anyone who uses AI on a daily basis knows it's not anywhere near ready to take jobs. I agree. Question's going to be, how much better AI gets. But also, this is a very doomeristic approach. What if Sam Altman is right? He has a much more optimistic version of how he's thinking about AI. And he thinks, and so same with Jensen, right? He thinks there's going to be an abundance of more jobs created. I think a lot of people are calling BS on that. But if they're right, then it should be great for everybody. Now, Elon's approach is that money will disappear and that's not going to be relevant anymore. I really don't know if I agree with that. But the point is no one knows. And that's why there's so much political anxiety, which is why you're getting Bernie and AOC to suggest a bill like this. VG up 5%. VG up 5% in the pre-market. Microsoft still down 0.4. Meta's down 1.7. Palantir down 1.37 on the day. Let's do the green or red poll in the chat and see what people are thinking. Uzi says, if you work using a laptop, you'll be at risk. I also do agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, there is that some companies just don't need someone sitting at their laptop all day if they could have an agent do some of these things, which means you got to kind of prove your worth at your job. You got to show up every day. You got to work your ass off. You got to show that value so that that thought doesn't even come into the mind of of an employer. Okay, green or red, and then we'll talk about the memory stocks. Green or red today. We got 10 minutes until the market opens. We are already red based on this idea of the war continuing. Trump's tweet signals that it's likely not going to come to an end anytime soon unless the Iranians agree on this deal. And based on the Iranians, they are not ready to agree on any deal. Okay, so Morgan Stanley came out and they said, buy the dip on Micron. They basically said, this is a DeepSeek moment. The Jevons paradox effect is that efficiency increases total demand. The inference economics are shifting by shrinking data size and movement. TurboQuant, which is the Google algorithm yesterday, aims to improve throughput per accelerator and lower cost per query. Broader tech implications, another DeepSeek moment. I kind of think they're right about this. I don't know. I'm not buying the memory names and I don't know as much about them, but I kind of think they're right, dude. I don't really think this compression algorithm, which was announced a year ago, by the way. I don't know why it made such a headline yesterday. Maybe because Google tweeted it again, but they wrote the article a year ago. Like, this information has been out there ever since Micron 3x'd. So I'm not buying the dip on memory, but I also don't think it's crazy to imagine people do buy the dip because this is not something that necessarily fundamentally changed HBM demand. But obviously, if you're more technical, then maybe it does. Oh, I forgot the N on green. Okay, whatever. You guys know what I'm trying to say. Guys know what I am trying to say. Gold and silver. Are we red? We are red. Gold down 2, silver down 5. So we are at least red in the commodities. Robinhood, they got a price target today of $88, but they got an initiation of coverage, which I thought was pretty interesting at this time to initiate coverage on Robinhood. Jefferies decided to initiate coverage, and yeah, they basically said, we think it's a great opportunity to buy the dip. Let me pull up exactly what they said today. By the way, AppLovin is down 7% because Meta potentially is going to be a more direct competitor. There are some reports that came out this morning saying that would be the case. And so, yeah, that's why AppLovin, which is suffering with all the software fatigue, is also getting hit this morning. The analyst said Robinhood is levered to rising global retail participation and his rapidly evolving product set is driving increased revenue diversity and client retention. Hood's unique ability to attract the next-gen investor positions it as one of the premium and primary beneficiaries of the ongoing approximate $100 trillion generational wealth transfer. So basically they said, look, we know that things have gone wrong in the beginning of the year because of the retail trading activity in crypto, but at the end of the day, Robinhood's going to benefit long-term from the wealth transfer. I actually had dinner with someone last night, Josh from X. You guys might know him. He's the OG hoodie. And he was telling me that he has like 4 to 5 different properties that he's going to inherit when his parents pass and his wife's parents pass. And so, you know, you talk about the wealth transfer. I mean, eventually he's going to have control over a couple $1 million of property that's already paid off. I mean, that's like, and then he doesn't want to take control of it. He might just sell it and put all that money into his primary brokerage, which is Robinhood. So there is a world where this wealth transfer thesis is very real, but it's a long-term thesis. It's not something that's going to change in the short term, but it is something that gets underlooked when we think about the amount of money that will be passed down. What do you guys have for dinner? So we had sushi. Dude, I'm convinced Japanese beer is the best type of beer that's out there. And I know my Germans in the chat are going to get mad at me for saying this, but if you follow me on Instagram, I posted this yesterday. This thing called Sapporo or whatever, Sapporo or something, whatever this thing is. This shit is the best beer. I drank the whole, I wanted a second one. And usually I don't drink beer like that. It was incredible. Like I feel like, I mean, I've had that beer before, but I feel like I haven't been to the sushi spot in a while. Or maybe I just didn't appreciate the beer, but it was like, it tasted good, bro. It was better than IPA. It was better than different versions of IPA. Like, it genuinely, I was drinking it like I really wanted to drink, and I don't even drink beer. I don't even know how to drink beer. I barely know the components of what's in beer. I haven't had Belgian beer, so I don't. Is Guinness Belgian beer? Because Guinness is like okay, but compared to that Sapporo shit I had last night, my goodness, bro. Like I want to go there by myself just to get another one of those. Like I really enjoyed it. I loved it. So now I want to go to Japan and have this actual beer. Oh, Guinness is Irish? Okay, my bad. Look, I'm not a beer guy, okay? I don't know what Stella Ortiz is and Heineken and all this shit. I don't know this stuff. But that Sapporo stuff was incredible, bro. Absolutely incredible. Guinness is not beer, it's stout. I don't even know what the stout is, bro. You guys are using these complex terms now. But anyway, yeah, the wealth transfer for him is a very real thing, and it looks like that's something that we can't ignore. Microsoft right there, down again in the pre-markets. What other headlines do we have? We got 5 minutes until the market opens. You guys are so mad at me for how I'm talking about beer. I don't know beer, okay? I had that Sapporo thing last night and it was good. I'm trying to think what other beer. Is Corona Light a beer? Because that's like a Mexican beer, right? I feel like I've had that once and I was like, oh, it's not. I don't know. I have weird taste buds, bro. Like it's gotta resonate. Otherwise, I'm never gonna try it again. I have tried sake. It was a long time ago though. I didn't have sake last night, but I have tried that before. This stat was really interesting from Bank of America. So it's a little bit of a narrative flip. Tech saw the biggest inflow, its largest ever in our data since 2008. They posted this yesterday. Tech saw the largest inflow in our data since 2008 as a percentage of the S&P 500. They're looking at tech in comparison to the S&P. Who's buying this much tech? It's definitely not just retail. Retail doesn't have the ability to have the largest amount. This is over the past week of inflows. I mean, there's got to be some institutions that are buying this, right? Now, we know that institutions are super bearish as well. So one argument could be that if institutions are loaded up on puts, they need to have some long exposure to be able to hedge against their puts. Usually you have puts to hedge against your longs, but if you're overweight the short side, you got to have some on the long side, and maybe this flips in a couple weeks. But I think, just off the top of my head, I think that's the institution saying we are not going to let what happened to us in March and April of last year, we're almost in April, happen again, which is have a president who tacos, the S&P rallies, and we miss a 10% move. Well, most of them missed a 20% move because they waited until June to get back in for our clients. And I think there is some level now, they're not going to get the full extent of this move because they're probably hedged and they have puts, but at least they'll get a net gain, which is why you're seeing some more momentum come in. And we've seen a lot of the data from the past couple of weeks of the fund manager surveys raising cash and hedge funds dumping stocks. But when you see that type of institutional flow coming in since 2008 as a percentage of the S&P 500, it makes you think that people are calling BS on the war and that, there might be a taco sooner or later. This headline I also thought was kind of crazy. 2 minutes until the market opens. Last headline, then we'll get into it. Fannie Mae will accept crypto-backed mortgages. Coinbase is going to be working with them to unveil a new mortgage product as per the Wall Street Journal. So Fannie and Freddie will now look at your fart coin on the balance sheet to be able to decide if they want to give you a loan for 30 years for a house. I feel like that's a recipe for disaster. Obviously, I'm joking about the meme coins, but even Bitcoin and Ethereum are incredibly volatile. But again, I guess if they can give you a loan based on your NVIDIA stock, then they can give you a loan on Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so I guess we'll see how this ends up playing out. We got Steve in the chat. Hello, Mitt from the clear skies from somewhere. I'm happy you got some internet, Steve, on that flight. I will be seeing Steve, and all of you guys will be seeing him at the LA meetup in a couple of days. Very excited for that. Mitt, did you get a haircut? This is how you know Steve doesn't watch the show. This is how you know. Yes, Steve, I've had this haircut for like 2 months now. That's how you know he's not a real friend, bro. He doesn't watch the stream. All right, here we go. 30 seconds. Let's see what we've got going on. Hopefully we get a little bit of green in the midst of this red. Mamba, thank you for the super chat. In this economy, here's a contribution for a half a Krogenborg Blanc, best beer out there. Okay, I will have to step up my beer game if you guys are going to keep accusing me of not knowing beer. So I will try that beer as well. 10 seconds. Let's get into it. Do not mute the bell. For all of you that mute it, the bell is a staple of the program. You just need to let yourselves enjoy it, become immersed in the market, immersed in the bell, and let it just happen. 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P goes down on the day. 651.49. We are down 0.84%. We are red across the board. Palantir down 2%. Bitcoin down 2.6. IGV, wow, we lost 80. We freaking lost 80 for the first time since February 24th. A month later, we lose 580 once again. Microsoft 370. Meta's down 2 point. Wow, Meta loses 580. I think that's the first time this year. Yep, that is the first time this year that we have lost 580 on Meta. 578.06. Nvidia 175. S&P 651. Palantir 151. Nvidia loses 177. Lily's down 0.5%. D-Wave is down 3%. Your quantum names are getting hit. Ondas loses 10. Ondas right there, that's down. Nebius is, whoa. Not sure why that's down 3.6%, but the entire market's down. Nebius getting hit a little harder, but then again, it looks like all the AI plays are getting hit. Grab somehow is green. TSM is down 2%. Google's down 1.7%. Google's getting hit. Elf is down another 2%. Where's CoreWeave? Is CoreWeave also getting hit? CoreWeave is down 1%. Iren is down 3%. Okay, so Iren and Nebius both getting hit right here. Nvidia 175, Microsoft 370, Palantir 151. Where is Hoodie? Hoodie is 71.02. Meta is at 578. How about Tesla? Are we holding 385? We are at 381. Tesla's down. SoFi 20 cents away from losing 16, which would be just disgusting. But I mean, this is the nature of this market. Micron potentially losing 370. SanDisk losing 655. It's down 3.9% of the day. Adobe is green. Wow. Well, it's not fully green, but it's like 10 cents away from going green. Adobe holding on. So Adobe being one of the software names to be okay today. Salesforce also going green. That's not just Adobe then. How about ServiceNow? ServiceNow very close to going green. All right, so some green candles coming to software. Is it coming to Microsoft? A little bit. IGV, though, still getting hit, but you have a little bit of a green candle from 79.30 to 79.80. Let's see if that can materialize into anything else. That's weird that software is going green with everything else going down. Google down 1.65%. AMD, are we green? AMD is not green yet, but it's trying. How about the space names? Rocket Lab down 2%. ASTS, that is also red. That is red by 2%. Planet Labs is up a little bit, but basically flat on the day. How about Lunar, which was up 20% yesterday? Lunar is now down 3% on the day. Fastly, I don't know how the street is in love with this name, but man, they are in love with it. It's a software name, but I guess it's a CDN, so it's not seen as a software name. That's up 2%. It's up 200% for the year. If you're in this one, congrats. This has been a really good hedge against the other software names that have just not held on to their momentum. Salesforce and Adobe go green. Salesforce and Adobe go green. VCX, that venture fund that is pitching Anthropic at $5 trillion, is up 11%, 420. It was 570 yesterday, so it is down from the highs, but it is at 420 right now as we get into the market open. VG, that's up 2. Orbs is up 1.4. Bitcoin 69.5. AppLovin, and again, that report that came out that Meta is going to compete with them, which I don't even know exactly how Meta is going to compete with them, but that was the headline. 402, 8% down. 8% down. Wow, Iranian reports. Iran's response to the 15-point proposal from the U.S. was officially sent through intermediaries last night. Okay, that's kind of bullish. And the reason that's bullish is because, number one, Iranian media is confirming there was a 15-point proposal sent. I think we can at least get away from that debate on if it was sent or not. Number two, they're confirming we sent a response to the U.S. Now, maybe that response is 2 words. The first one rhymes with duck, and the second one is you. But at least there is some level of communication, even if the market does not really think the communication is going well. S&P, 0.85 down. 0.85 down, 651. 651. Microsoft losing 370 right here, 369. Nvidia 176. Palantir loses 150. Palantir loses 150, 149.80, as that is down 3.2% on the day. Kratos is down 2. Lemonade's down 0.5%. Oscar's down 1. OSS down 2.7. CrowdStrike's down. I mean, it's a bloodbath, but it's not that bloody. Like, it's red, but it's not like 7-8% across the board. It's more like 2 to 4% across the board, which is, it's not fun. But a lot of these names were up 2 to 4% yesterday. So they're kind of just like Rocket Lab's just giving back the gains that it had yesterday. It's not like it's completely hitting new lows. In fact, Rocket Lab, I think, was up 9% yesterday. It's down 2% here. So, okay, it's giving back 7% of those gains. But what sucks about it is it's a slow bleed, right? That's the part that is not fun about it. Donvin, thank you for the super chat. Bell Gang, hashtag never mute. Thank you, Donvin. I appreciate it. I deeply. But now that I'm telling you guys not to mute it, you guys are just going to be spamming that you're muting it, which is fine. That's okay. Just saying, got to let yourself get immersed in the bell. every time we have to ring it. ServiceNow, that goes red. Salesforce lost its red. Adobe lost its green. Salesforce lost its green as well. Tesla is not looking pretty, potentially below 380. Where's Uber? The VIX is at 27, so we're not at VIX 30 yet. Uber's flat. Is Grab still green? That's crazy, bro. I don't know how the hell Grab is holding up there. 376, up about 1% on the day. SPY isn't giving up 650, which is encouraging. SPY isn't giving up 650. Once again, this is why the covered call matters. This is why the covered call matters. Either you sold them yesterday or maybe you sold them a day early, the day before yesterday, where we had the really big green day. But if you at least sold it over the past couple of days, that is what's hedging the downside today, at least to some extent. So I do think that's important. Meta right there at 578. The VIX, again, inching towards 27. What's the 10-year? 4.3. It's not at 4.5 yet, but it's still not good. VIX is up 7%, 2720. 2720. I mute and I turn my speakers off. I do feel bad. Some of you guys that have pets have to deal with the bell. By the way, dude, my algorithm is showing me so many dog videos. Like, I need a dog. I know I'm not going to be able to take care of the dog the way I need to. But I freaking want the amount of golden retrievers showing up in my freaking algorithm. Like, I'm just staring at these videos, almost crying, bro. I want a dog. But I can't take care of it. I cannot take. Also, the bell would probably freak out the dog every day. Reddit right there, 134, down about 3.6. GE Veranova down 1.2. AAOI, your photonics names are down. Nike's down. Chewy's up. GameStop's up a little bit. United Airlines up. Oil, are we at crude? Are we at a 95? We are at 93.80. So still up. We were at below 87 yesterday, which was encouraging. VCX just fell pretty heavily, 337 from 420. So look, you really only won on VCX if you bought in after the IPO. You probably had paid a premium to the IPO price, but you still got like a 4 or 5x. If you bought in before it IPO'd, I mean, you haven't won anything yet. You have to wait 6 months to see if this thing holds up, which I imagine it will hold up, but I don't know if it's going to hold up at these levels. So really, this was a trade for people that got in after it went public, not before, because you're in a lockup. You can't do anything with your shares right now. And who knows what the market environment is going to be like in 6 months if these valuations are able to be sustained by these private companies. Microsoft still red. Wow, a lot of you guys have dogs. A lot of you guys have dogs. Satellogic is up. This stock, dude. Talk about the stock of the month. It's freaking Satellogic. My goodness. And it could go down as easily as it went up, but it feels like the SpaceX IPO plus the earnings really helped them to get some momentum. Okay, we got another update from Iranian state media. Tehran's conditions include ending attacks and assassinations, guarantee the war won't restart, full compensation for damages, and a region-wide end to fighting involving allied groups. Okay, so that's the first condition. Second argument, it also insists its control over the Strait of Hormuz is a natural and legal right. So they're once again advocating for sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, Iran says it does not trust U.S. negotiations. That's basically saying that Kushner and Witkoff stabbed us in the back, calling them a deception aiming at appearing peaceful, keeping oil prices low, and buying time for possible new military action. Well, look, here's the problem that we're having right now with all this. Here is the issue. If the United States says, hey, you can keep the Strait of Hormuz and yeah, we're going to stop like all the attacks, we get nothing out of that. We get absolutely nothing out of that. We don't get them to stop their nukes. We don't get any control over the oil. We don't get any regime change. We get nothing. So that's a non-starter. There's no way Trump could agree to that deal. I mean, there's just no way in hell the administration would agree. It's either that or boots on the ground, and I think 100% of the time it would be boots on the ground over agreeing to that. So that's a non-starter. Which is why the Iranians are saying, we don't really trust any of these negotiations, and we think they're going to try to attack us because at this point we're at an impasse, right? Like, we are not giving up the Strait. They are not giving up any of the sanctions or reparations or anything, so we're going to have to legit go at war. And if that's the case, then things are going to get ugly. Now, that's the bearish perspective. AMD right there down 1%. The bullish perspective is there actually is some level of a deal happening beneath the scenes that the media is not reporting about because they're trying to keep it super low key. And Trump is saying what he wants to say, and Iran is saying what he wants to say, but maybe in a week they're going to come out together and say we've reached a deal. That is the more optimistic view that maybe the markets want to take. I think that's the view they've had over the past couple of days. And then today that view is kind of going down the drain. But I think it's either boots on the ground or you get a deal. But there's no middle. There's no middle where Trump's like, oh, yeah, they get to keep everything and we just leave the region. It's like, then what was the point of it? And then the American people are going to be asking, what the hell was the point of this? Just to kill the Ayatollah for his son to get in power? He was already 85. What exactly was the reason? So once again, we're stuck in purgatory of trying to figure out how this ends up playing out. Luna right there, that's down 2.4%. Adobe and Salesforce and ServiceNow actually flipping green, which is just weird price action given the rest of the market's going red. Kind of makes me think the algos are just going back and forth today. Meta, 52-week low, 575. 570 freaking 5. Right here. Amit, I hear your thesis, but what about Trump's plan to attack their energy right this weekend if a deal isn't reached? Well, we have 48 hours, and we don't know if Trump's actually going to follow through on that. If he does, then I think the market's going to be upset about that. I mean, that's just full for attacking their energy infrastructure. Yeah, this war is continuing, and everything that he's been saying about peace this whole week goes out the window. That was all BS at that point. But if he delays it again and tries to say we're making good progress, I mean, remember his tweet on Monday before the markets opened, and also right after someone bought $1.5 billion worth of futures, ironically. Just a nice coincidence. He said negotiations are going well. He said we're doing great. He said we've had productive conversations. And then today he's like, the Iranians are begging us for a deal, but they're lying in public. So there's just so much he said, she said going out there that I don't think the markets at this point even know how to fully determine what the hell's going on. And I think that's why we're red. I think that's why we are red. S&P, NVIDIA losing everything it got yesterday. Literally everything it got yesterday going out the window. Iran losing 40. Robin at 71.96. Meta 576. Where is Microsoft? Are we below 370? No, Microsoft goes green. Okay, so some of the software names getting some love. It's almost like they've got so oversold that something needs to step in, which is at least kind of bullish for the day, but still bad. Still pretty ugly. Iranian media citing an informed source. Tehran is now waiting the other side's response to his position on the American proposal. Okay, so again, it goes back to what we just talked about. Either the Iranians are telling us in public that they want all of these amazing things and they're not going to give up anything, and that's their actual proposal, and they're now waiting for a response, or they're telling us they're not going to give up the Strait of Hormuz. They're telling us they want full reparations, but in reality, they're okay with giving up some parts of the Strait. They're okay with not getting full reparations. They're okay with getting rid of some of their nukes. Like maybe behind the scenes, they are actually seriously negotiating in a way that is meaningful. Again, we really don't know. Hopefully, we'll find out by the weekend. But at this point, the market is obviously assuming the former versus the latter, which is why S&P is red. Although we did get a green candle right there, up from 650 to 652. So we are still red, but we were not as red as where we were before. We were going to lose 651. No one is lying about this. Negotiations are up and down. No one shows their cards. It's a process and it's confusing, but it is a process. I agree with that. I mean, and eventually we will know what happens either by force, and we see that we're going and we're putting boots on the ground, or we have some type of a deal. But the reason everyone is confused and should be confused right now is because, yes, negotiations are incredibly confusing and everyone can assume what they believe will happen. But until we actually get direct details, which has been the story of the past couple of weeks about all this, right? I mean, no one fully knows. IGV recovering above 80 as you're seeing more of this momentum to the downside. AppLovin 398, that's down 8.7%. Is Walmart green? Walmart almost green on the day. 10 years moving up 4.364. It was at 4.33, so you are seeing an increase in the bond market. Hoodie trying to go green as well. Again, Hood's going to really need the market to participate, even with that share buyback that was announced, 72.52. Tesla trying to get a little bit of green as well. Again, we looked at that headline from the Wall Street Journal. Most investors see a ceasefire by end of April, as per Deutsche Bank. We got a couple OpenAI headlines. They backed a new startup. NVIDIA's also backing a new startup last night. So we got some more AI startups raising capital right now, which, the fact that they're raising capital is at least somewhat bullish about the amount of spend that's still in the system. S&P 653, trying to move up. ARM had a great day yesterday. I think ARM is a little overextended given the amount of momentum they got, but they definitely deserve a premium for 5xing their revenues in the CPU market. I think that's also what pumped AMD yesterday. But ARM right there at 158, down from 161. AMD down 2%. AMD down 2%. Netflix went green as well. Netflix. Are people still buying Netflix, or are people done with it after the 70 lows? I don't see that many people talking about it anymore. I think most people, retail got this one right this year. Retail called BS on the Paramount acquisition, and Netflix ended up walking away with $3 billion. However, as bullish as it was, Netflix still does have a big problem, which is that they don't have good content. Like, they just don't, and they need a lot more content. And I know they bought Ben Affleck's AI studio, which reportedly was $600 million, which to me is kind of insane, dude. $600 million. It's more than $500 million for an AI studio. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't know the terms of the financials of the deal, but it sounds like they were buying Ben Affleck more than they were buying the studio. But they need more content, and like Warner Brothers at least was offering that. So now they're gonna have to figure out how to make it themselves. The VIX is going down, folks. Okay, we're getting our 947 reversal because why not? VIX now is only up 5%. Robinhood flipped green. S&P, do we have a green candle? S&P, it's a pretty nice one, 650 to 653. Still down 0.5% though. At least it's not down full 1%. VCX halted. Oh my, this is down 30%, folks. 271. Whoever bought this at 572 yesterday is now down 50% on this. Yeah, it's halted. 271. I wonder if that's halted to the downside, which means there's a lot more downside, or you get buyers to step in. It IPO'd at 30, so it's still up a lot, right? Wow, look at her go. 654 S&P. She's really trying. She's really trying to move on. Citron is short VCX. Well, but okay, they must be using some complicated instruments to short it because, or maybe it's just Robinhood that doesn't let you short it, but I don't think you're allowed to short it on any of the retail brokerages. Like there's barely any shares in the float to short. Yeah, they just tweeted they're short. This is one of the easiest shorts ever. Granted, things can get crazy in the private markets, and maybe it's not the easiest short ever, but I can't blame Citron for being short. This is stupid, bro. This is like actually stupid. But brokerages, I don't think you can easily short it on. You can do synthetic shorts. It's hard to borrow on Schwab. Yeah, I would imagine the borrowing rate is a bit more aggressive. Look, again, I like the companies in VCX, but you cannot justify paying a 3,000% premium to the net asset value. Like, what are we doing here? And the worst part is this is all retail. There's no institution on the planet paying 3,000% of a premium for SpaceX, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Databricks. And if they are, it's the dumbest institution ever. Like, they can get access to this stuff without, but it's all retail doing this stuff. And it's annoying as a retail investor. It's like, why does retail do this? Like, this stuff is so stupid. As a trade, it's a different question. But if you're like, oh, I'm going to go long SpaceX and OpenAI by buying something at a $8 trillion valuation, we've just lost all logic at this point. All of it. Ondas, are we red? We are trying to recover. 10.05. That's up a little bit. Robin at 72.50. Tesla 382.72. SMH is also down. AppLovin is down 8%. Microsoft's green. You're not seeing a lot of headlines other than the Iranian response, which no one knows exactly if they are lying about what they actually think about the negotiations, or if they're, once again, holding their position strong, which is that they're not going to give up anything and they just want the U.S. to leave. I given what has happened about the Strait of Hormuz ever since this operation happened, I don't think Trump would ever want full sovereignty of the Strait now being placed on the Iranians, because now he knows they can hold up the entire global economy, which you would think he would know that before entering the war. But I really don't think the administration thought that would happen. I think they thought it would just be, oh, let's get rid of the guy and we'll be done. And they found out, like, unless they want to legit have a war on the Strait with their Navy versus the Iranian Navy, then if they don't want to do that, yes, the Iranians have control over it. It is what it is. So I don't think in this negotiation he would want them to keep control, but I damn sure don't think the Iranians are going to want to give up control, which is why we might be at an impasse here. CoreWeave went green. CoreWeave went green slightly. Fundrise is unhalted and it's down again from 270. Now it's at 263 as that continues to go down. Mid, is anything a screaming discount for you? No. Honestly, no. Like, could I say theoretically something is a screaming discount like a Microsoft or NVIDIA? Of course I can. But I will say the same thing I said last week and the same thing I said on Monday. Unless you think the war is legit coming to an end, there is no bottom in sight. Now, you might have a name that's down so much that you feel comfortable buying, like an NVIDIA, which I have been. I haven't bought in a couple of weeks, though. One of your favorite names might be down so much where you're like, dude, I really want a Micron at 470. Now it's at 370. I really believe in the thesis. Like, I want to buy it. That's fine. But to say that it's a great buy, to say it's a V-shaped recovery, to say that it's Trump saying it's time to buy the dip and it's like robbing it at 30 last year, it's like, no, there's no deal that's out there, because all of those deals would be contingent. The multiple-wise, they might be out there. When you look at Adobe's free cash flow multiple, it looks ridiculous for the size of free cash flow that they bring in, Adobe going green on the day. But everything is contingent on the war and oil prices. And until that comes to a conclusion, how can anything be a screaming buy? Unless you think that the war is going to come to an end soon. Google right there, 286. As that's also down. Why is Mara up big today? Okay, so Mara, I'm happy you brought that up. They sold some Bitcoin, which kind of helped them pump today. Mara announced, they repurchased $1 billion in convertible notes at a 9% discount. Oh, yeah. So they did. Okay, so they sold Bitcoin to buy back their convertible notes. They sold $1.1 billion in Bitcoin. They sold 15,000 Bitcoin at 72,600, and they repurchased $1 billion in convertible notes at a 9% discount to par value. So they did not hodl their Bitcoin. MicroStrategy has never done something like this. That's, Saylor would, I think, literally rather die than sell his Bitcoin. So, Marathon's a different breed here, but that's how they're funding some of these purchases. Saylor's actually diluting by another 21 billion. They filed an ATM a couple days ago. So one side is getting ready to buy the Bitcoin that the other side is selling. But it goes to show Marathon is not really in the AI data center HPC place like the other Bitcoin miners have transitioned to. They are still stuck dealing with the ramifications of holding on to Bitcoin that is not performed pretty well. Meta right there at 579. Why is Red Cat red? Well, Red Cat still has a high beta name, along with Ondas and Kratos and all those guys. The drone stocks are down. What about Oscar? That's 1218, flat on the day. Shopify is up 1%. Your software names are actually kind of holding on right here. Your semis are all red, except a few of them. SaaS is all green, except Cloudflare and Palantir. S&P, high of day, 654.50. Fundrise is now down 35%, 255, low of the day, as that continues to go down. What happened to AppLovin? There is a rumor that Meta is going to more directly compete with them. We literally don't even have any other details on what exactly that rumor looks like, but that headline has hit AppLovin pretty hard. The cybersecurity names are getting some love. They were getting hit yesterday. Palo Alto, CrowdStrike, and Zscaler. But, there are like software names as well that's getting a move. Zeta as well. I mean, again, the only reason Zeta is green is because software is pumping. The only reason Zeta was red yesterday is because software was dumping. So I don't think any of these software names are trading remotely near what a fundamental perception of their valuation would be outside of the discount rate, or the new discount rate, which is increased from the previous discount rate, on their growth estimates because of new Claude updates. And every day the market has a different opinion on this. I don't like beer. I only drink Jack and Coke. Dude, Jack and Coke is disgusting. I don't know how people... Like, Coke itself is amazing. Coke is good. Like a nice cold Coke is great. Jack inside of the Coke just makes it taste like medicine. I don't know why people do Jack and Coke. Now, Honey Jack as a shot is phenomenal. I'm speaking like I'm some alcohol expert, but Jack and Coke is just, no, that's not it. That is not it. Rocket Lab down 3%. Bro, chill. That's my drink. That's a lot of people's drink. And I'm not just saying it to be controversial. Like it's not a good drink. I don't know why people think putting Jack in their Coke is like, oh yeah, that's what I want to drink today. It's like, what? You know what I'm starting to like gin and lemonade. I had that at GTC. Gin and lemonade is actually it's an easy drink and it gets you buzzed. That's that along with that Japanese beer is starting to become my thing. Nvidia down 1.6, Palantir still down 2.6. Yeah, or gin and Sprite. Exactly. All right, let's see what other headlines do we have. Let's see. What else do we have? We don't have any crazy stuff coming in. There's not a lot of tech stuff coming in. We talked about the jobs data. We talked about all the Iranian headlines. Oh, this one was interesting. OpenAI is putting their erotic chatbot plans on hold indefinitely. So Sam Altman, who defended about 3 months ago the logic behind giving adults, Micron, by the way, getting wrecked, down 4%, the ability to engage with a chatbot in an erotic fashion, has now announced that they're going to put that plan on hold, which, given the elimination of Sora and the canceling of the Disney deal, I don't think that's a horrible idea. I think that makes sense. I also think just for the future of humanity, we kind of need people to talk to each other, not to chatbots in that fashion. So I guess we'll see what happens there. AMD, 215. Having said that, it would sell a lot more NVIDIA GPUs. I mean, if you had a lot of people having AI girlfriend and boyfriends, you need a lot of compute for that, bro. You need a lot of compute. NVIDIA would have to make a very specific type of compute for that. So there is a way to play that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Oh yes, Trump will have a cabinet meeting today. When is that cabinet meeting happening? Oh my goodness, the cabinet meeting is going to be them just basically explaining why they're winning the war. It's probably at 11:30. That's usually when it happens. Tesla's still red. What else do we see? S&P is basically flat. It tried to get some momentum at 655, then went red. Oil's still down. Joby's going to show off their new taxi in New York at the end of April. I guess that's cool for Joby. The eVTOLs really haven't taken off this year. Joby down 3% on the day. Celsius is going green a little bit after losing 10% this week. Has anyone tried the Costco Kirkland Energy? Is it even available to drink yet? Iran's initial response, which was also conveyed to Pakistan, was that the proposal lacks the minimum requirements for success. Senior Iranian official says Iran's assessment is that it is a one-sided and unfair deal serving only U.S.-Israel interests, which, yeah, that's probably true. Another senior Iranian official says Iran's initial response, which was also conveyed to Pakistan, was that the proposal lacks the minimum requirements for success. I mean, look, that is a negotiation, right? Trump probably gave the worst offer he could possibly give that was only bullish for him and Israel. Iran's going to counter that. And now Trump and Israel are going to have to counter that. And I guess we're going to see how the cards end up playing out. But yeah, if I was the Iranians too, I would be like, guys, like, you guys just want to get everything and give up nothing. Like, there's no way we're going to accept this deal. And it seems like that's the process that's going on right now. Hims, is that green? Hims, a little green today. 2105. 2105 on Mr. Hims. So, okay, so your software names are going green. Your semis names are basically mostly red. Space names giving up what they got yesterday to an extent. Adobe, 3%. I mean, Salesforce, Adobe, ServiceNow, 2.5% to 3%. it's like the algos woke up and said, all right, sell semis, buy software. Like, it is so hard to trade this market on a weekly basis because you don't have a trend. You just don't have a trend. Senior Iranian official to Reuters, there is still no arrangement for negotiations. No plans for talks appear realistic at this stage. Again, there was a report yesterday saying that Pakistan would be the place where the talks take place. So that would be the region where there would be talks, which, maybe would be where it plays out. Firefly is up. Yeah, that's up 1.6 as well. That's in that same space sector. Senior Iranian official to Reuters, Turkey and Pakistan are trying to help establish common ground between Iran and the US. Dude, Turkey and Pakistan must be feeling some level of like legitimacy. When was the last time Turkey and Pakistan were relevant in global affairs regarding the United States? Like it's Turkey and Pakistan. Like, no disrespect, but they're not really the actors that come to mind when it comes to dealing with global affairs. And they're now dead in the middle of trying to resolve this stuff because they have a better relationship with Iran than the other actors. It's crazy. It's not India, not China. I mean, you would think, United States is trying to get the Russia-Ukraine thing to be resolved. You would think like China would step, but China never steps up when it comes to this stuff. They don't try to mediate things. Xi just like lets the world burn. He's like, oh, they're fighting? Cool. Let them fight. It's like, my country is the one making all the shit that they're using to fight with. So at the end of the day, like, they're going to keep fighting. Cool. They need a lot of raw materials. And China's going to get a lot more business. And the US is the one that always is like, hey, let's try to find some peace treaties. And now you got Turkey and Pakistan doing it. Senior Iranian official, diplomacy has not stopped. And if realism prevails in Washington, a path forward may still be found. Okay, so that's like, again, I'm not saying that's super bullish, but you got a senior Iranian official giving this quote to Reuters saying diplomacy has not stopped. That is pretty much what Trump said this morning, that they are trying to negotiate, but he obviously said it in a very aggressive way to the Iranians. And if realism prevails in Washington, a path forward may still be found. Realism means they're basically saying we're not giving up the strait and you guys have to give us reparations. They might, I think, say, okay, we'll give up the nuclear weapons program. And that's a big if. But I think if they can keep this straight and if they can get the US to pay reparations to potentially lift up sanctions, they might be okay with giving up some of the nukes. But I don't think they're giving up the strait. There's no way. I think that would be how it plays out. S&P trying to once again hit 654. No, we are at 64 again. The VIX continuing to come down, which is at least kind of good. How would we ensure they're nuke free? I mean, I think Trump would have to come up with some type of agreement that like requires very heavy surveillance of what they're doing because he's not going to just trust them. And I think that's why he was mad at the Obama nuclear deal because he was like, there's barely any surveillance. We don't even know what they're doing. But I don't know. I don't know if that's all Trump wants. At this point, I think he's going to have to justify more about why we did this, and he's going to be asking for a lot more. Amcor is getting hit. Amcor, yeah, that's down 6%. That is down 6%. Ram, thanks for the super chat. Have you looked into BitSensor Tau? Okay, so this is a cryptocurrency. I've heard of this thing a year ago. I've not fully looked into it. I know there are some big names that are excited about it, including JCal. I do not know enough to analyze the cryptocurrency itself. I know its market cap is $3 billion. I don't fully understand the use cases of it. I have heard of it. Over the past week, it's made a move, right, from 240 to 349. Yeah, I don't know enough about it, but it has come on the radar. I know that Zcash was getting a lot of attention last year. I think Tau was the next one to get attention, but I just don't think you can buy any cryptocurrency in this environment and think that even if there's some fundamental use case that like it's going to be relevant and it's going to lead to, it's not a meme coin for sure. I know Tau is not seen as a meme coin, but regardless of the utility, it's like Ethereum, was perceived to have so much utility, and I think it still does, but crypto's in a macro headwind right now versus like a necessity to find a use case to get people to buy, because right now it seems it's more about liquidity. Mara up 13%. SoFi still down about 1.2 on the day. All right, let's get some more coverage on what's going on with the war, and we will then keep going from there.
Track what oil's doing, and we have oil up 3% today. It's not a big deal. It's not making new highs. $90 WTI seems to be the pivot, where it sort of, you can be more comfortable below and less comfortable above if you're an equity investor. But everybody recognizes nobody knows what the current setup
and
is.
it could be temporary. I mean, even the USPS
Everything
fuel
could be,
charge is
yeah.
an 8% price increase on package shipping services,
Right.
but it's temporary. Right.
Yeah.
The only other, we talked a little bit about housing, which
Sure.
tees off of these higher housing stocks have actually been not performing well on rising rates, rising mortgage rates. KB Home CEO this week said we saw pretty good sales results for the first week of March, but the last couple of weeks have been a little softer than what we would like to see or what we would normally get this time of year. And we just don't have a lot of visibility right now. I don't think anybody knows how long this conflict may go on and how it's going to impact consumer psyche and confidence. But we feel that right now it is weighing on the consumer.
Pretty direct tie between immediate consumer confidence responses and then shopping for homes, but we know it's also the rate story, so not a surprise there.
Yeah.
Obviously, home builders were coming off their highs even before the war, and rates did what they're doing. So yeah, it's interesting how we're in this window. Everything has happened kind of after the core of earnings season, or essentially when we're in the final month of a quarter, when companies aren't really updating us in real time and they don't really know what the impact's going to be. So the earnings estimates are hanging in there fine. Even the macro data, we got a very benign jobless claims number this morning.
Very
so
benign,
everything that you can
210,000.
look at and calculate and explore, it looks okay. And so it's all about what
It
are
does,
we
and I was
meant
talking
to
about this with
expect in the
Jim.
outlook.
It's like for every negative one, you can do 5 positive ones. He talked to Paycheck CEO.
Yeah.
No, I mean 800.
Oh, in terms of
800,000
CEOs, yeah, sure.
800,000 customers. He said there's no sign of
Right.
recession there. And then the jobless claims, as you say, we didn't see any kind of spike, which maybe you would see if companies got sort of nervous about the outlook.
It's too soon, I guess. We're in that 4-week window. I think everybody recognizes that. And the market is, I don't think, jumping to any specific conclusion. I keep saying that, equity investors have not allowed themselves to fully lose sight of the possibility this ends up being brief and contained, and we're not going to have to live with higher for longer oil prices, and the disruptions maybe can be minimized from here. But every day that goes by, that's a decaying asset, that confidence in that scenario. We are still about 1.5% on the S&P above the lows.
Yep.
Which is a good thing, and that's only because I think Trump has said that we're not going to attack as per Monday, or otherwise we were losing those lows easily. And we have 48 hours. You now have the Iranians saying diplomacy is possible. I mean, maybe over the weekend we actually get something good versus bad. But obviously, if boots get on the ground, it's not gonna be the best. Tom Lee just shared something on X. I think this is kind of interesting. If you take a look at this chart, these are performance of broad-based sectors since the Iran conflict started. So this is February 27th to today. What's leading? Ethereum's up 17%. MSI World Energy Index up 14%. Energy's up 13% in general. Bitcoin's up 12%. Technology XMAX 7 up 3%. IGV's up 2%. Communication services XMAX 7 up 1%. World Technology up 1%. The Max 7 is flat. Financials are flat, which you would think that all of these assets would be way worse from the start of the war. I kind of can't believe Ethereum's up 17%, to be honest. And then what did the worst? Silver, industrials, real estate, healthcare, world financials, the TLT, obviously rates and bonds. As yields have gone up, TLT has gone down. And then materials. So look, all these assets were down a lot before the war started. So the fact that they've recovered the most since the war, quote unquote, recovered, yeah, it's not like really making a dent, but that is kind of interesting that we've seen sort of risk on sentiment since the war started. But I think the only reason for that is because so many people are calling BS on the war, and they're saying that eventually this will end. So I should be in what will do well after Trump announces it's going to end, which kind of explains the B of A largest tech inflow since 2008 stat that they put out yesterday. But they're going to have to be right that the war actually comes to an end. Crude also dropping a bit. It was at 95. Now we're at 92. So we're seeing this drop A little bit more. I bought Granny and it's way down. How is Granny doing? I mean, well, every large scale ETF is down on the day. Grant is down 3% this year. I mean, that's better than the S&P as of now. Granny did like 25% last year. It's one of the better large cap ETFs. They're a lot more selective, but obviously it's tough to outperform when the broader S&P is taking a hit. And why is Nebius getting hit so hard? Nebius down 4% right here. They introduced like some new cloud today, I think. It's like, let me pull up the headline. I thought this was actually kind of bullish what they introduced. But then again, Oracle getting hit doesn't help them. And the dilution stuff with Nebius is done, at least for now, so that's not something that has to be worried about. Oh, of course. It's now, yeah, why not? The freaking Bernie Sanders thing. I mean, it is a headline if a new AI safety bill would halt data center production, like perceptually, these neoclouds that are rooted in data centers, like Meta, their whole business is not data centers. Nebius, Corey Viren, it's data centers. So even though you got this Nebius AI Cloud 3.5 update, the Bernie Sanders thing is probably what's taking it down. But didn't Nebius secure the bill already? Yes, which is why I think the market forward looking into new data centers is discounting Nebius's TAM essentially if this bill gets passed. But this bill's not getting passed, dude. Like, I don't think it's getting passed. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you have enough support in Congress to stop data centers from being built. VCX still getting hit. Micron, are we still down? Micron 365. It's the lowest it's been in a couple months for Micron, or at least a month. SPY, still, NVIDIA's losing it now. Almost 3 cents away from losing 175. And most things are still red. Reddit's down 3. The Qs are down 1. Baidu's down 2. Dell, which had a great day yesterday. No one can complain, but that's down 2. GE Vernova's below 900. Coherent, wow. Photonics Play is getting whacked. AOI down 7. Light down 7. Coherent down 7. Saidu Space is down 2. UAL and Royal Caribbean. Why are the cruise lines and airlines up when oil's up? I mean, again, that's the market saying we don't believe oil's going to be up. Otherwise, you would sell those off. American Airlines, Delta, all those are green. My second biggest position, Lam Research, is down today. Down 7%. I didn't see a headline on Lam. I know Jose likes this one as well. What's Lam's ticker? It's LRCK. I always forget their ticker. It is LRCX. Yeah, that one's down too. Yeah, that's ugly. I don't know why that one's getting, but a lot of the semis are getting hit today. I would say most of the semis are getting hit. Marvell holding on. Celestica as well. That's red. Jason's not trusting this Marvell pump from the technicals we did yesterday. He thinks this one easily can fade out like it has the past 3 times. RVI, the Robinhood Ventures thing is up. Wow, 16%. They didn't announce any new investments. I think that's just money that's chasing it because they didn't get into the VCX thing. I guess that's what we got. Amid, how are you managing HOOD? Covered calls. That's how I think, unless you go full port energy and hope the war continues, you manage a portfolio during this time. You have to decide how much of a position are you comfortable with leaving you and how much can you yield the volatility off of to be able to not only reduce your cost basis, but cause some level of upside in the midst of the downside. So HOOD and NVIDIA, great premiums. I know a lot of you guys have Rocket Lab, great premiums. Ondas, decent premiums. Nebius, phenomenal premiums. Like, I think that is, at least to an extent. There will be a day, probably this year, where the covered calls just don't work anymore, either because we go so down that it doesn't matter, or we just blast off, and hopefully I'm assuming it's the latter. But I don't think we're there yet. I feel like we're getting closer when the ceasefire headlines come to fruition, but then when they fade away, it goes right back to, okay, what do I have left that's helping the portfolio? It's the covered call, at least on a day-to-day basis. Meta right there, Down 4%. I would only sell puts on the stuff that I really, really want to buy. And again, I just don't think there's anything that I really, really want to buy. But like if you've been waiting for a meta entry for a while and you're like, dude, it was at 700, I'd be happy buying it at 550. Then you sell the put at 550, probably collect $10 a premium, cost basis 540, and then you just can't cry if it goes down to 500. But you have to be like really ready to buy. By the way, Burry bought Fannie and Freddie, just announced on his Substack. Burry buys Fannie and Freddie. So Adobe, Fannie and Freddie, and GameStop are the three major names that he picked. Amazon flipping green. I don't think there's a headline on Amazon. I will check. They did buy a humanoid robot company. It is kind of ironic. Amazon bought a humanoid robotics company the day before a humanoid robot was in the White House for the first time. It's kind of weird. But that was the headline we had a few days ago. No, I don't see anything on Amazon. I will have a Substack article coming out on Amazon later today, though. And the conclusion is it's cheap, but the conclusion is it's cheap if you have a long-term mindset, which I know is so basic to say, but it's like I don't see this thing running easily this year, given the internal nuances with their economics, which the article will talk about, particularly their free cash flow. But the long-term picture on Amazon has got to be one of the most bullish setups in the entire market. It's just, you know, you gotta hold it and hold it. And that's kind of the strategy. Zeta up 1.7. Red Cat down 5. I want to buy Hood at 70. Any thoughts? My only fear with buying Hood right now is that the market environment is different. We looked at a couple stats yesterday that said retail trading has hit a low since 2021. And if Bitcoin actually collapses, Robinhood's going down. So do I think it's a bad price here? No, I don't think management thinks it's a bad price either. But the understanding has to be that nothing has bottomed. And I don't think Hood is susceptible to the argument that they've bottomed either. But it does look like management is ready to buy the dip. It has bounced very nicely every time it got just below 70, like 68, 69. Usually it has bounced. Iran accuses the UAE of role in attacks and supporting U.S. operations against it, warns of decisive and unrestricted response as it ends its policy of restraint. Okay, well, if the Iranians want to fight with the UAE, that's not really going to lead to any peace if they're negotiating with the U.S. So I guess they can keep fighting, but at some point, everyone's going to have to stop shooting and sit down. Why is AppLovin crashing? Meta potentially competing with them was the headline. I'll see if I can get more on that, but that was the main headline this morning for AppLovin. Martin says, amid as a Tesla shareholder, I'm more concerned about Elon's promise to start cyber taxi production in April. That's a good point. Isn't that supposed to start like now? Or did Elon say H2 of 2026, which means he has till June? Was it April or H2? I feel like he said H2. But if it's April, like, yeah, we need an update. Like, if they're legit starting that at scale, you know, if they're ready to really get those bad boys out. I mean, that's the thing about Tesla, dude. Like, their product is the best, but robotaxis are not scaling yet. They have not got into like 50 different cities. All I hear is Waymo and Zoox are going everywhere, and Tesla's not. And I get it. They're trying to do unsupervised. They're trying to make it perfect. They're trying to really make it, you know, full self-driving, which will be a better product, in my opinion. But it is not fully expanded yet. How many red days have we had this year? That's a good question. Let's see if Gemini is good enough to answer that. Let's see. Usually it messes up on the numbers. How many days in the stock market for 2026 have ended with the S&P 500 going red for the day? Let's see. I'm going to ask the same thing to ChatGPT. It usually messes up on numbers. Let's see if we can get something here. 382 on Tesla. Amazon 71. UAL 94. Okay, so Gemini says 29. out of 58 trading days. So the math on that is more than 50%, right? No, exactly 50%. 29 out of 58. ChatGPT says, yeah, basically the same, 30 days. Okay, so cool. So they agree. So half of the year has led to a red day. Meta 573, goodness. Wow, half of the year has been red. That's crazy. Oh my gosh. Well, we still got a long year left, right? But damn. That is aggressive. Let's get some coverage on the war. You have the former national U.S. security advisor talking about it. Let's see what they have to say about this.
The Iranian 5-point proposal, which basically says you're going to pay us reparations. You know, we're going to have the keys to the Straits of Hormuz in perpetuity. You know, that you're going to stop, defending yourself against our terrorist organizations like Hezbollah. So what you're seeing is a fragmentation of the regime. And I think what you're seeing is that elements of that regime remain permanently hostile to the United States,
Yes.
Israel, and their Arab neighbors. Remember, they just attacked 14 different countries in the region. So, Sarah, I would just argue that you're not going to have a restoration of peace because until there's a change in the nature of this regime. This is regime, the remnants of this regime that are in power remain permanently hostile to the great Satan, the United States, the cancerous boil, as well they refer to Israel and their Arab neighbors.
So I guess I'll ask you, what should the United States be doing? Maybe before I ask what you think will actually happen.
Well, sir, I think what we're doing already, continuing the campaign, and what you're seeing now is kind of a shift. You'll see a shift in the campaign away from what those primary targets of the missiles, the missile launchers, the drones, the Navy, their ability to project power outside of their borders. It was always the plan to focus on that first, as well as their ability to regenerate those weapons and capabilities, their defense industrial base, before shifting on a campaign to ensure freedom of navigation.
Okay, so this guy obviously wants to continue the operations and the fights. And I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like Trump wants to, based on what he's been tweeting about. But, there have been a lot of reports as well that there are a lot of people in the administration that want this thing to continue. And, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, I mean, like these very obviously who the neoconservatives have been that have been pushing this. And then you have the David Saxes of the world that were never consulted about should we strike Iran. And you could tell they're pretty pissed off about this. And they vocally, for the first time this year, disagreed with the administration. I mean, David Sachs has agreed to every little thing Trump has done. He has not said a single thing that's bad. No critique. This is the first time he's like, yeah, I think we should find an off-ramp soon. And so you have two different factions of the Republican Party. And obviously the ones who wanted the war ended up winning in this scenario. And maybe the ones who don't want it might get Trump to get out of here. But there are different people that have Trump's ears that have obviously led to this influence. I asked Gemini to compare to 2025, and the results are actually kind of interesting. 2025, same time period, number of red days, 61%. 35 out of the 57 days to start off 2025 were red. Right now we're at 50%. So it was 11% worse in terms of the percentage of red days that we had. And the S&P was down 10% as of late March in 2025. The S&P is only down 4.2% as of 2026. So technically, it was worse last year. Objectively, it was worse, not only on the S&P rate of decline, but also on the number of days that you have to deal with the rate of decline. Meta is just getting smacked right here. Goodness gracious, 572. I just don't think it's been as exhausting as this has been, given the headlines we have to deal with every single day. The Meta headline was again about the lawsuit with child exploitation. I don't know if that's the only reason for this. I mean, it seems like that is the main reason. Let me pull up some coverage on that. We can get any more details there.
Again, ruling, I'm pretty surprised by the investor reaction, which is meh. but perhaps there's some, overhang that's gone.
Well, it's significant, and perhaps the reaction isn't so, bad right now, because this is only the compensatory damages. So there were $3 million for compensatory damages. That's for pain and suffering, to reimburse a person for what they.
And then it was 375 million in total. So I don't know why the market's 375 million is nothing to Meta.
Welcome back. News today of more layoffs at Meta. Mackenzie Sagalos joins us with the details. So what's happening there, Mackenzie?
So, Sarah, we're hearing from a source familiar that Meta's planning to lay off several hundred employees today across the company.
The layoffs technically should be bullish, so I'm not sure why it's getting hit this hard.
BI was the first to report that those layoffs were imminent. The company is chalking this up to a regular restructure, adding that some are being offered other roles, though relocation may be required. And the cuts are coming one day after a New Mexico jury ruled against Meta. This was the company's first child safety loss in court, but investors shrugged it off, in part because they were only ordered to pay $375 million in civil damages, a fraction of what prosecutors were looking for. But this case, it is only one front in a much larger legal fight.
Yeah, it seems like that's the argument. It sets the precedent, as you guys are noting in the chat, to open up more lawsuits if they lost this one, which means they're going to have to pay more parking tickets. I still don't know if that puts a dent in their overall revenue, unless there's a law that changes how Meta's algorithms work, which, that would hurt their advertising. But if that doesn't happen, not sure why the street is that upset.
A jury in LA has already spent more than a week deliberating in a bellwether case against Meta and YouTube over addictive design allegations. Later this year, similar claims head to federal court against Meta, YouTube, TikTok, and Snap. And then in May, Meta's back in court in New Mexico for a bench trial that could force actual changes to the platform, including the way minors use.
Yep, that's it. That'll be it.
Encrypted messaging. That kind of court-ordered redesign would be far more consequential than a civil penalty.
We also were able to show that the company's own safety team had been recommending for years and highlighting for years the dangers of these features. They were repeatedly ignored by Mr. Zuckerberg and other executives. I think fundamentally that's what made the difference in this case.
And that gets to the broader legal strategy here. Plaintiffs aren't going after user-generated content. They're going after engagement features to sidestep Section 230, and that shifts liability to how these products are built, which is a much bigger threat to Meta. Guys?
Yeah, Mac, I was trying to...
That'll do it. Granted, the headline came out 2 days ago, so I wonder why the streets today... Wow, 570. A little bit of a delayed I guess the streets waking up and it was like, this might be seriously bad for the core business. And maybe that's why you're seeing the red. But the headline is kind of old. 569. I guess the impact of it is starting to become a lot more apparent to the street. KK Bionic, happy birthday to you, man. Thank you for being here and spending your time with us on your special day on the show. So I'm sorry you're feeling a red day, but 50% of people that have had their birthday to start off the year have also had a red day. But happy birthday to you and appreciate you being here. The Meta thing is interesting because, again, there's two parties to it. There's the party that is sort of libertarian, that's like parents need to have control over their kids and they, don't let them watch this type of stuff, yada, yada. And then there's the other argument, which is like, dude, parents are working their jobs, they're busy. The kids need to have a phone because other kids have a phone. They need to have a social life. And if they get on these platforms, parents want the platforms to be responsible enough to not show their kids addictive things that, get them down rabbit holes and all this stuff. And like that debate, I think, will go on for a long time. But in this case, the jury said, nope, Meta, you're biting the bullet here. You are not getting out of this one. Savici says, admit I'm addicted to YouTube because of you, but I'll settle for that Palantir share on the wall. Savici, I need to get you a Palantir share next time I see you in Miami. I'm like, dude, I started watching YouTube. Dude, I don't think I've ever told you guys my YouTube story. I started watching YouTube like 2 weeks after it came out. This was 2005. The reason I started watching it is because my mom used to tutor kids in our house. She was like a part-time tutor. And one of the kids came over. I was like 7 at the time. And I was into WWE wrestling, but I couldn't watch the Royal Rumble because of the freaking pay-per-view. And so this kid that came over, he was like, did you see the game? Did you see the match last night with Rey Mysterio? And I was like, no, I can't watch it. We don't have pay-per-view. And he's like, dude, just go to YouTube. I was like, what is that? He's like, youtube.com. You'll watch it. Because that was the use case for YouTube. Everything was pirated. It was the way to find free shit without having to pay for pay-per-view. Obviously, YouTube cracked down on all that after a couple years. But I clicked on YouTube and I was like, oh my goodness. Like I was, I think, one of the first, I don't know, YouTube has 2.5 billion. I would say I was one of the first 100 million people on YouTube. I genuinely think that. And I wish I had the same account and I could look at my account history from back then. But ever since that day, I was hooked on YouTube. And the amount of YouTube phases I had, dude, I had the tech phase. I used to watch the unboxing videos. I had a magic card phase. I became a magician. I still remember about 10 different magic tricks. Like Miss Mag 822. That was the channel. I would watch him every day. I'd be like, Mom, I'm going to become a magician. She's like, okay, honey. Ended up not working out, but I had multiple phases of YouTube. And then I got into the stock market phase probably like 7 years ago. And now I'm here. Do you remember Renito? I do not. But dude, there are some channels, some OG channels, like Cable. Oh my God. If I show you some of these OG videos, like the Nintendo DS unboxing from Cable. Does anyone remember that? Am I triggering the memory for anybody? This was when in 2006 when the Nintendo DS came out, Nintendo DS Lite. He did one of the most legendary, 20 years ago. This is how old I am to YouTube, bro. This video from Cable 20 years ago.
Hey guys, it's Cable here with a quick video review of the new Nintendo DS Lite.
That's crazy, bro. The reason we brought this up is because, yeah, I mean, people have been addicted to social media and YouTube and Facebook for a long time. The algorithms have obviously done a very good job to be able to encourage that. If Meta, Google have to change their business models based on that, that is a fundamental headwind to the business. More for Meta than Google, in my opinion, because Meta is so contingent on that user interaction within Instagram. But they've done a good job making these algorithms. Did anyone remember that video? That's I know everyone has their own phase of YouTube, but that was one of the first videos I watched 20 years ago, and I was just hooked. Like the way he did the review, that's when I wanted to start doing tech reviews. And then I went on to Magic and all this different stuff. I used to watch Stickman videos of raw animation, all this random stuff, so many phases of YouTube. Reddit right there, 132, that's getting hit down 5%. But we are still seeing red on the day. I mean, what do you think of SoFi $14 puts on 424? Gets you 2.8%. If you think paying $14 for SoFi makes sense, then yeah. I don't think paying $14 for SoFi is crazy, but then again, how bad does this market get? I didn't think SoFi would get to below 20, and here we are. Wow, look at SanDisk. Below freaking 630. Goodness, 7% down. Can you do a magic trick every Friday at the close? The problem is I can't do it with you guys because you can't pick a card. And if I pick a card for you, you guys aren't going to believe that I'm actually it has to be in person. I should bring a deck of playing cards to the freaking meetup. Because there's some tricks that I learned how to do that are if you're with a group of 10, 15 people and you do the trick, people lose their minds. I should do that. That would be fun. Oh, yeah. Charlie bit my finger. How did I forget about that? That was an OG YouTube video. Can you turn red into green? That's good. That's the comment of the day. That's the shout out to Tyler. That's the comment of the day. Can you turn red into green? Okay, what's going on with AppLovin? Down 10%. Meta, ironically, is the reason AppLovin's down, but Meta's down 5%. What is the freaking AppLovin headline? There isn't. It's just Meta appears to be infringing on app's core business. That is literally what I'm seeing here. I don't even know who. This is not a sell side thing. It looks like a Reuters report or something, or Bloomberg. AppLovin stock falls 7% on Meta competition and weak e-commerce spending trends. Okay, the weak e-commerce spending trends might be more legit. This article says weak e-commerce spending trends is leading to no significant new customer momentum, with challenges to ROI diminishing as budgets increase from initial low levels. That sounds more practical than just meta competition. Okay, maybe that's it. Maybe that's freaking it. Tesla's down, Robinhood's down, American Airlines down, Apple goes green. Why is Apple up? I don't know. But Apple is green for some reason. All the Mac 7 are down except Apple. Wow. Meta, it looks like she wants to lose 569. She did for a second. Where's Microsoft? Are we at 370? We're at least holding 372, so that one's somewhat green. Let me look at the heat map as well. NVIDIA under 175. There she goes. Amazon, yes. Amazon. I don't have a headline on Amazon, but that turned slightly green. Okay, so I guess Google, NVIDIA, Meta are the main three, and Tesla or four red Mac 7s. I mean, healthcare's up, real estate's up, utilities are up, consumer defensives are up. It's really tech and software is actually more up than not. Trump is not live yet. They usually do the cabinet meetings at 11:30. Oh shit, he's live? Really? This is super early for him to. Okay, let's see what he's saying. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but we'll try to get the war headlines, obviously.
Are you all ready? A lot of media, as usual. So thank you to the incredible members of my cabinet. They're doing a phenomenal job. Everybody pretty much agrees to that, including our newest member, Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen. We're now on day 41 of the disgraceful Democrat shutdown of Mark Wayne's department. Congratulations. He came into a department that shut down by the radical Democrats. But Democrats are really punishing the American people. I saw it today on one of the shows where they were interviewing people at the airport, and they're all angry at the Democrats. They're saying they're actually angry at Schumer. I didn't think anyone knew his name. One woman said, that Schumer is disgraceful. He's a disgrace to our country. But they're angry at the Democrats. They know what's happening. But they're punishing the American people, including travelers at airports, all in the quest to return to open borders and give amnesty to illegal alien criminals. They want to give amnesty to some of the criminals that came into our country, just about all of them, actually, if you look at it. They love sanctuary cities, which is a sanctuary for criminals. They want to make sure they're taken care of. That's what we're fighting about. That's really what they're fighting. They don't talk about that, but that's what they're fighting about. They want to protect criminals. In many cases, 11,888 murders. Many of them, I will say, are gone now because of us. We got them out. But still have some left. Should have never happened. Should have never been allowed to come into our country. But we're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let the Democrats get away with this stuff. And people are wise to them. So they need to end the shutdown immediately, or we'll have to take some very drastic measures. This morning, I want to give an update on the Operation Epic Fury, which is an appropriate name because we are absolutely obliterating them. Over the past 3 weeks, we've been hitting Iran's military capabilities at a level that few people have ever seen before. People never knew there was such a capability. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world by far. I built it during my first administration, and I used it during my second administration. Unfortunately, because I'd rather not have to use it. But it's a display of force and precision and skill like nothing the world has really witnessed, although you get a pretty good witnessing of it in Venezuela also. And that was a smaller version of what we're doing now. We're crushing their missiles and drone stockpiles, destroying the defense industrial base. We've wiped out their Navy completely, their Air Force completely. We've wiped out a large percentage of their missiles. And the missile launchers, without the launchers, the missiles don't do any good. And we've knocked out probably close to 90% of the launchers, probably more than 90% of the missiles themselves. Between some they fired and more than they fired, we knocked out. We've also destroyed A lot of the factories were continuing to do that, but a lot of the factories where they manufacture the drones and the missiles, the drones too are way down. But the reason they're down is they go one way and they don't come back, because for the most part we're shooting them down. But we also are able to, we've really done tremendous damage to the places where they make them. And just so we set the record straight, because I've been watching the Wall Street Journal's fake news and all these stories that get printed like, oh, I want to make a deal. They are begging to make a deal, not me. They're begging to make a deal. And anybody that saw what was happening over there would understand why they want to make a deal. But they say, oh, we're not talking to them. Anybody would know that. And only a total fool. And they're not fools. They're very smart, actually, in a certain way. And they're great negotiators. I say they're lousy fighters, but they're great negotiators. They are begging to work out a deal. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I don't know if we're willing to do that. They should have done that 4 weeks ago. They should have done it 2 years ago. Or they should have done it when we first came into office, because 2 years ago they had free reign under Biden. Sleepy Joe, worst president in the history of our country. What he allowed to happen to our country at the borders, and even with a thing like this. But not just him. Every president for 47 years, every president should have done this. They should have done it a long time ago, because you cannot give lunatics a nuclear weapon, and they would have had a big one. It stopped really when we did the B-2, but even before that, the Barack Hussein Obama, what he did where he gave them the Iran nuclear deal, gave them free will toward a nuclear weapon. Basically, he chose Iran over Israel and others that didn't want him to do it. But I terminated that deal. Had I not terminated that deal, you would have had a nuclear weapon years ago, and it would have been used, guaranteed. And one of the reasons you know about the guarantee is because their neighbors were sort of like bystanders. They weren't involved very much. They didn't choose heavy sides. They didn't want to, because people were concerned with Iran. There was a big black cloud over the Middle East. They were concerned, but all of a sudden the war starts, and they start shooting at these five, in particular, 5 countries. They start shooting at Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Oman. They start shooting at them, and everybody was shocked, including us. You know why? Because they're sick, and they had a plan to take over the Middle East. And some of those missiles that were shot at them were locked long before we even started this process. They were locked and loaded and aimed at those countries. They wanted to take over the Middle East, but we happened to come along, so it wasn't so easy. So right now their Navy is sunk in the largest elimination of a foreign Navy that has taken place, maybe ever, but certainly since World War II. Their Air Force is gone. Their anti-aircraft and communications capabilities are totally dismantled. And one of the problems they do have when they deal with us is we deal with people, and the people aren't able to communicate with anybody else. So, because all of their leadership has been gone. The first level is gone, and they met to pick a new level, and they're gone. They're all gone because they didn't make a deal, and because they're sick people. They're really sick. They're really sinister, sick people. And if anybody thinks it was okay to have a group of people like this to have nuclear capability, nuclear weapons, and if we didn't attack with the B-2 bombers, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks of that, maybe 4 weeks. But between 2 and 4 weeks, they were planning to have a nuclear weapon. If we didn't hit them at that time with the B-2 bombers, and one of the great air raids in history, maybe the greatest, dark at night, no moon, no light, every single bomb hit its mark and just obliterated that place. So it's now buried deep under earth. And it was an amazing thing, but they would have a nuclear, and they would have used it without question. And you know that because why did they shoot all these countries that weren't even really involved with them? They weren't involved. They had no big problems because they're sick, because they want to take over the Middle East, not just Israel. Certainly Israel would have been the first on their list. They would have used nuclear weapons, a nuclear, you don't need too many of them, but they would have used a nuclear weapon on Israel, and they would have used it on the other neighbors, and then they would have come after us. And if we had a weak president, they would have done great damage. But fortunately, you don't have a weak president. I knew what was happening. And I think we've been proven right. You know, they took one missile, went 2,500 miles. They supposedly didn't have a missile like that. They had no missile with that capability. But they shot the now famous Ireland, the island that the UK was very afraid to give us because they didn't want to get dragged in. But we don't want to get dragged into their wars either. You know, it's one thing we're very disappointed. I'll say it publicly. We're very disappointed with NATO because NATO has done absolutely nothing. And I've always said 25 years ago, I mean, I was somebody that wasn't a politician, but I was always involved in politics and I understood politics. I said 25 years ago that NATO's a paper tiger, but more importantly, that we'll come to their rescue.
Market's going down, Nvidia getting dumped, so market's obviously not liking what they're hearing right now.
But they will never come to ours. And I want you to remember that we said this. They didn't come to our rescue. Now they all want to help. When they're annihilated, the other side is annihilated. They said, we'd love to send ships. They actually made a statement, a couple of them, that we want to get involved when the war's over. No, it's supposed to get involved when the war's beginning, or even before it begins. We had the UK say that we'll send, this is 3 weeks ago, we'll send our aircraft carriers, which aren't the best aircraft carriers, by the way. They're toys compared to what we have. But we'll send our aircraft carrier when the war's over. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Don't bother. We don't need it. And we don't need it. And we don't need them. We estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission. And we're way ahead of schedule. If you look at what we've done in terms of the destruction of that country, I mean, we're way ahead. Think of it. They have no Navy. And they had good ships. 154 ships have been shot down and are resting very nicely at the bottom of the sea. And we did that in a matter of less than a week. Because we have the greatest military in the world by far, nobody even close. So we estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission. 26 days in, we're really a lot ahead of schedule. The Iranian regime is now admitting to itself that they have been decisively defeated. They're saying to people, this is a disaster. They know it. That's why they're talking to us. And they wouldn't talk otherwise. But they're talking to us because they've got a disaster on their hands. They're defeated. They can't make a comeback. We're free to roam over their cities and towns and destroy all of their crazy nuclear weapons and missiles and drones that they're building. And we're doing that. They now have a chance to make a deal, but that's up to them. And they'll tell you, we're not negotiating. We will not negotiate. Of course they're negotiating. They've been obliterated. Who wouldn't negotiate? They are begging to make a deal. We'll see if we can make the right deal. And if they make the right deal, then the strait will open up. Hormuz Strait will open up. And even now, we don't know if there are any mines. You know, they have 22 they call mine droppers. Think of it. Who would have 22 mine droppers? There's a boat that drops mines. Who has 22 mine droppers? Except for people with very evil intention. So every one of those mine droppers has been struck with the same weapon we used to stop drugs from coming into the United States of America. When we hit those boats, it's the exact same weapon, extremely effective. We have unlimited supplies and extremely effective. But they have no more mine droppers. By the way, speaking of drugs, we're 98% down drugs coming in by water, by the ocean, by the sea. 98%. And we're trying to find out who are the 2% because we think they're the bravest men anywhere in the world. Maybe women. But whoever's on those boats is very brave or doesn't watch television. But where drugs coming in by sea, coming in by water, are 98% down. And now we'll stop the drugs coming in by land. The land is the easy one. You had to stop the water. A lot of it came into the water. Now it's all pinched. And these people are trying to come in by land. And we will, that's it. That's the easy one. but we had to take care of the water first. Nobody's coming in. Virtually nothing is coming in anymore. It was hundreds of millions of dollars a week were coming in by water. But they now have the chance, that is Iran, to permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions and to chart a new path forward. We'll see if they want to do it. If they don't, we're their worst nightmare. In the meantime, we'll just keep blowing them away, unimpeded, unstopped. Well, there's not a thing they can do about it. They can't do anything about it, you know? I tell you, if they could, you'd be hearing about it. You'd be hearing about it. You don't hear anything about it. They can't shoot our jets. We have the best military equipment in the world. No, not even a contest. You see that with Venezuela? They had other equipment. They didn't have ours. It didn't work. Didn't work. Think of it. We did the situation in Venezuela. It was a great military operation, getting a very, very dangerous man who's killed a lot of people, forced people into our country. Incredible. He emptied his prisons in Venezuela, emptied his prisons into our country. And I hope that charge will be brought at some point, because that was a big charge that hasn't been brought yet. It should be brought. He emptied his prisons into our country and was a major purveyor of drugs coming into our country. And he's now been captured and, you know, I guess be given a fair trial. But I would imagine there are other trials coming, because they've really sued him just at a fraction of the kind of things that he's done. Other cases are going to be brought, as you probably know. In the meantime, with Iran, we're going to keep.
The reason the markets are getting hit so hard right now is because even though Trump is saying we're going to have to come to a deal and the Iranians want a deal, the markets are just not believing it right now. They believed it over the past couple of days with the ceasefire stuff. They are not believing every word he says, which is that the Iranians will get to a deal because we've obliterated their military. As of now, the markets are like, no, we don't think that's the case. And if there's more escalation, then they don't believe in the ceasefire, stocks go down.
Doing what we've been doing, and nobody's a match for the United States, but they're not a match for the United States. It's small potatoes. That's why I'm so disappointed in NATO, because this was a test for NATO. This was a test. You can help us. You don't have to. But if you don't have, if you don't do that, we're going to remember. Just remember this in a number of months from now. Remember my statements. They have an expression, a great expression. Never forget. You can never forget. So as we end threats to America abroad, we're focused here at home on building the greatest economy in the history of the world. Now, before this started, the Dow hit 50,000. The S&P hit 7,000. Both of those achievements were not achievable. Every one of you, most of you, I guess, said you'll never hit 50,000 during a 4-year period because it was too high a number. Well, we hit it in our first year. And I said, well, now we have to take an excursion to Iran and we have to stop this maniac who's no longer with us. The supreme leader wasn't so supreme, no longer with us. It's very sad. But we have to stop him from blowing up the world, blowing up the Middle East, and blowing up our country. And we did that. And frankly, I thought the oil prices would go up more, and I thought the stock market would go down more. Hasn't been nearly as severe as I thought. I think they have confidence in maybe the American president and maybe the people sitting around this table. But Americans filing their taxes this year are receiving record-setting refunds. It's been a very big story. Well, it should be a big story. I don't think you read about it that much, but I speak about it. I speak about it.
All right. So Trump admitting he thought oil prices would go up more and the stock market would go down more. But he's surprised that it's not as bad as the S&P gets close to its intraday low. Okay.
About it, because if I speak about it, at least people hear. You don't write about it. You don't write about the drug prices going down. It'll be going down 30, 40, 50, 60%, 70%. Favored nations called Most Favored Nations. We're going to be paying the lowest price anywhere in the world. Before we paid the highest price in the world, Bobby, right? And now we're going to pay the lowest price in the world. That's quite a difference. It's a difference of from 40 to 70 and 80 and even 90%. That's a pretty big difference. But we're slashing regulations and investment is pouring in from all over the world. We have the most investment of any country in history has been put into our country in the last year. And again, we had to take a little detour. Won't be long. Going to end soon. We had to take a little detour, go to Iran, and we had to put out a fire. Very dangerous fire that could have blown up big portions of the world, if not the whole thing. So tomorrow we'll be announcing a variety of actions that we're taking to support American farmers, who we never forget. We love the farmers. We gave them $12 billion out of tariff money. We had a tremendous amount of tariff money come in, and we continue to have. We've gone, as you know, the Supreme Court gave us a very unfortunate, foolish ruling, a ruling that gives the people that have ripped off our country for many years, gives them some money back. It's one of those things. It's a terrible, terrible, horrible mistake they made, but it's okay because we have another method that's just as good. We'll use the other method. But because the tariff money has been so substantial, we gave our farmers who have been mistreated.
Okay, so we'll get back to Trump in a little bit. That is quite the statement from Trump right here. S&P 652. Nvidia's getting hit pretty bad. Microsoft's getting hit, or Microsoft holding on to a little bit of green, but it's down from its highs, and Meta just getting whacked. So, I mean, look, why would Trump say, I thought the markets would go down more and that oil would go up more? It's kind of obvious. He's trying to paint the picture that it's not as bad as people think, and it could have been worse. I don't think the markets want to hear that because, well, the markets might end up giving you what you wish for, to be honest. And maybe the markets try to think, hey, it is going to be that bad if Trump thought it was going to be that bad, and we should price that in. So right now, we're not necessarily seeing that yet. We haven't lost 650 on the S&P, which is kind of, I think, the core technical level now. Hood right there is down 2%. Tesla's down 1.7, loses 380. Google's at 286, but it is obviously a bloodbath across tech. Amcor is down 7. SoFi's down 2. Micron, 362. NVIDIA easily losing 175. And you have the S&P right there down half. Bitcoin below 70. Meta, the court case on Meta really hurting it right here. But I guess the street waking up to how bad it could become for their overall advertising business. In terms of how much worse it could have got, I mean, at least Trump didn't say, the S&P is what, down, I think 4.5% since the war started, or about 4%. At least he wasn't like, well, I thought the S&P would be down 10%. At least he didn't get that specific about how bad he thought it would be. But again, he's trying to paint the picture that it could have been worse. And he followed up by saying the American people have faith in their president, which is why they're not selling off their stocks. I guess time will tell how long that faith continues to last. Amcor right there down 6. HIMS is flat. Joby's down 4. Value ETF going red on the day. I mean, who's buying the Meta dip right here? This is a little confusing. We haven't seen 560 since November. Last time we saw 550 or 560s. No, November we bottomed at 579. This is worse than November. Wow, May 2nd of 2025 is the last time you saw anywhere near 560. November was 579. I feel like if you're buying the dip, you either have to have extreme confidence in Meta, or you have to know more about this court case that happened today, because all I did was see the headline. But obviously there's something more nuanced about this court case that doesn't seem like a knee-jerk reaction. Maybe it is, but maybe the market feels there's a bigger threat to Meta if a flurry of lawsuits open up to hurt them. Google right there, 286. See a decent chunk of people saying you're nibbling here on Meta. Reddit's dumping with Meta because, I mean, look, I know people don't like making the comparison, but Meta is the advertising giant along with Google. For everyone that's bullish Reddit, I don't know if you easily buy Reddit without looking at what's happening to Meta. And if Meta's getting lawsuits around addictive algorithms and all this stuff, I'm not saying that's going to happen to Reddit, but obviously the perception and the narrative of that overhang around the ad stocks, including AppLovin, yeah, it's going to affect them. So I guess it would make sense for that one to take a little bit of a hit. 750 to 560 on Meta. since the earnings. I just woke up. Why is the market getting destroyed? Well, Kevin, the president of the United States of America is signaling that the war is over and that the Iranians are begging for a deal, and the stock market does not believe him. I think that's the easiest way to sum up what's happening. Let's get back to Trump. Let's see what he's saying. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but again, if he's talking about Iranian updates, that's the stuff that we want to get out of this.
By some country. Pretty right. But
the Holy Week that celebrates the return of Jesus Christ to Jerusalem. And so I want to say to all of my fellow American Christians, but particularly those serving in the Gulf, that I wish you all a very blessed Easter, a very blessed Holy Week, and we continue to stand behind you and continue to support you every step of the way. Thank you, sir.
thank you very much. Marco?
The most important job any president has is to keep the American people safe. And every president says it, but we have a president that means it and does something about it. As the president outlined very clearly to the world on the night this operation began, Iran has been at war with the United States for 47 years. For 47 years, Iran has been killing Americans and attacking Americans across this planet. And other presidents had an opportunity to do something about it. And they all warned about how Iran was dangerous, but they refused to act. And this president's not someone that's going to refuse to act. He's not going to leave a danger like this in place. He's going to address it, and that is what he is doing. From the very first night of this operation, the president made it very clear. People like this, and now what I'm talking about is not the people of Iran. The people that run this country are radical Shia clerics. These are religious fanatics. Look what they are doing now. At their weakest point, this is the weakest Iran has ever been, and look at what they're doing. They're attacking embassies. They're attacking hotels. Imagine what these people would do if they had a nuclear weapon. That is an unacceptable risk for the world. By the way, the president's not just doing a favor to the United States and to our people. This is for the world. He defined very clearly on the first night of this operation what the goal was. We were going to destroy Iran's Navy, and that is happening. We were going to, if it hasn't already happened, I'll let Pete speak to the specifics of it. We were going to destroy their missile launching capabilities. We're well on our way to achieving that goal. We were going to destroy the factories so they couldn't make more missiles and more drones. And that is moving forward. Every single objective the president clearly laid out on the first night of this operation is being effectuated. Again, Pete will speak to the specifics of it. This has been an incredibly successful operation. Every day, it may not get covered because, we're unlike them. We're not bombing embassies and hotels. We're hitting military targets. But every day, the Department of War lets the drummer get wicked over every portion of Iran that has these military capabilities, and the results are going to bear fruit for the world. The world is going to be a safer and a better place when President Trump's mission here is achieved. And frankly, I think countries around the world, even those that are out there complaining about this a little bit, should actually be grateful that the United States has a president that's willing to confront a threat like this and not allow it to continue to persist. Because these people will kill as many Americans as they have a chance to do. And if they have a nuclear weapon, as the vice president pointed out, they could kill millions of Americans in the future. And that is a risk that was not going to continue to exist as long as we had this president.
Thank you, Marco. It's very interesting because yesterday I was watching, is it Anthony Blinken? And he was saying that they should have done it. But they didn't do it. Nobody did it. Nobody did it. For 47 years, Marco, that's the number, 47. I guess now it's 48 because we've been saying 47 for a long time. It's probably 48. But for 47, 48 years, every president should have done this. And some are saying now that they made a big mistake in not doing it, but we're taking care of business. Steve Witkoff, please.
Mr. President, it is my distinct honor to be a member of your cabinet and to report to you and your team on our negotiations with Iran. Mr. President, you directed Jared and I to pursue a diplomatic resolution with Iran prior to Operation Epic Fury, which we did. However, it became quite clear during these meetings with the Iranian negotiating team that we could not make a deal that fulfilled your objectives of the following: no enrichment whatsoever, no chance of weaponizing whatsoever, decommissioning of Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan, which you destroyed in Operation Midnight Hammer, no stockpiling of any material, which they flagrantly violated, turning all enriched material over to us, and a cutback in Iran's missile inventory and range capability of those same missiles. Throughout our meetings with the Iranians, we heard the following from them. The Iranians have the inalienable right to enrich. Then we heard they possessed enough 60% enriched material, 460 kilograms, to make 11 atomic bombs. Finally, we heard the following statement. They would not give up diplomatically what we could not win militarily. In other words, they were again miscalculating the success of Midnight Hammer, which was a total success. These are incontrovertible signs, among many other signs, sir, that their regime had not given their negotiating team authority to make a deal required by you. We conferred with you and all the other members of your foreign policy team, Susie Wiles, Pete Hegseth, the chairman, Marco Rubio, JD, Scott Bessent, Chris Wright, John Radcliffe, throughout all of these negotiations, and we were repeatedly rebuffed on everything we asked for. I have no doubt that we exhausted all efforts on behalf of a peaceful resolution, as you directed. Jared and I both agreed that the Iranians were there to buy time until a weaker president arrived. This was a flawed strategy, as your clear direction was to never allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon today or any time in the future. Against that backdrop and our compelling military successes in epic fury, we have had multiple reach outs from the region and others who want to play a role in ending this conflict peacefully. I can report to you today that we have, along with your foreign policy team, presented a 15-point action list that forms the framework for a peace deal. This has been circulated through the Pakistani government, acting as the mediator. And this has resulted in strong and positive messaging in talks, as you just indicated to the press. But these are sensitive diplomatic discussions, and you have directed us to maintain confidentiality on the specific terms and not negotiate through the news media as others do. I can say this, we will see where things lead, and if we can convince Iran that this is the inflection point with no good alternatives for them, other than more death and destruction. We have strong signs that this is a possibility, and if a deal happens, it will be great for the country of Iran, for the entire region, and the world at large. Your policy of peace through strength is the most effective tool for a diplomatic resolution here, just as this policy was an effective tool in each and every one of all of the other conflicts you settled in your first year. Iran is looking for an off-ramp following your powerful threat on Saturday. Your indications that you are willing to listen to peace proposals have been well received. You've instructed us that your preference is always peace, and that we should make that our priority. We have delivered that message, sir, along with the 15 points for peace. Finally, we have told Iran one last thing. Don't miscalculate again.
Good. Thank you very much. Good job. Doing a great job. Everybody around this table is doing a great job. Pete Hegseth, please.
Mr. President. I'll start kind of where you left off, Mr. President. Thank you for doing the work of the free world and having the courage to step up and stop the Iranian terror regime from holding the world hostage. That's really what it is. And 27 days ago, Iran had a modern military. Never in recorded history has a nation's military been so quickly and effectively neutralized. Operation Epic Fury is not an endless war. It's a decisive campaign with clear objectives to destroy Iran's offensive military capabilities and ensure they never obtain a nuclear weapon. This is stuff for the history books. This is stuff for legacy. Mr. President, you are acting now to ensure future generations do not have to live under the threat of a nuclear-armed Iran. However, you wouldn't know it if you listened to the dishonest hate Trump media, as you referenced. The folks here in the room, these cameras, they have a choice. You're either informing the American people of the truth or you're not. Because I hear it from my people every day. Behind every headline you write, there's a helicopter crew in the air. And behind every news banner you write, there's a battalion on the move. And behind every fake news story, there's an F-35 pilot executing a dangerous mission. My message to the media is get it right. This actually isn't something new to me. I may be a young guy, Mr. President, but I'm not a rookie in this realm. In 2007, I helped lead the surge, the public fight for the Iraq surge. Stood and watched people stand in the Senate and declare the war is lost before it even started. Who was that? It was Harry Reid. That was the Democrats and the media working hand in glove. Back then, it was 3 years into a war. Now we're 3 weeks into an operation. But see, unlike Iraq, this isn't a tie. This is not parity. This is not chaos. This is success, pure American success, on plan, and as the president said, ahead of pace. Over 10,000 enemy targets destroyed, over 140, I think now you're right, Mr. President, over 150 naval vessels sunk, underground facilities destroyed, their defense industrial base in shambles, and overnight, not only do they not have a Navy, Mr. President, they no longer have a Navy commander. IRGC's Navy commander was killed overnight in operation. So no Navy leader. Now that here's the thing about the media though, if President Trump had not acted, you'd be screaming, why not? And now that he has taken decisive action, you're asking, well, why did you? It's the same old tired playbook, TDS in your DNA. But the hardworking, God-fearing, patriotic Americans out there know better. And you alluded to this, President Obama, Mr. President. Here's a fact that you don't hear on your networks, but we know. Many of the Iranian military factories and bases that we're systematically destroying were paid for by the pallets of American cash that Barack Obama flew into Tehran under the Iran deal. You might call it an inconvenient truth. Iran took our money and turned it into weapons and bunkers and ammo. And now we're destroying those weapons and you're writing, Mr. President, that grievous wrong. And make no mistake, we had to act. And our objectives are clear. No nukes, no Navy, and a complete dismantling of their missile program and defense industrial base. And as Marco pointed out, that mission, and the VP as well, has not changed since day one. Yet, 2 days ago, they shot 2 failed missiles on a target 4,000 kilometers away. For years, they told the world that their missiles could only range 2 kilometers. Surprise. Yet again, Iran lied. And to the world, I say London is 4,000 kilometers from Iran. Washington, D.C. is 3,300 kilometers from Venezuela, another country President Trump did something about that partnered for a long time with Iran. So you're telling us that Iran is not a threat to the world or to the U.S. President Trump knows better. And here's what success actually looks like right now. You mentioned it, Mr. President. A-10 Warthogs, if you know them, you love them, and Apache helicopter gunships are flying strike missions inside Iranian airspace and throughout the Strait of Hormuz at will. See, you only send these slow, low-flying, close air support platforms when the enemy has no meaningful air defenses left. Their presence is proof that Iran's air defenses are gone. Their command and control is shattered, their top leaders hiding in underground bunkers, while their mid-level commanders are being crushed in the field. The morale of their fighters plummeting. We see that disconnect daily. They're privately admitting, as you said, Mr. President, very heavy losses. We know that. President Trump has given us a clear mission. Our capabilities are only going up and Iran's are plummeting. We are here to win, and we're full speed ahead. So, Steve, we appreciate your efforts. We pray for a deal, and we welcome a deal. And we have the ultimate deal maker to make it happen. But in the meantime, as I said yesterday, the Department of War will continue negotiating with bombs. War is negotiation by other means. And finally, I want to thank our incredible troops, our pilots, crews, sailors, refuelers, air defenders, the absolute best of America, the real 1% of our country. This president, President Trump, has your back. And I know this cabinet prays for you every single day. We ask the American people to do the same as they continue in this mission. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great. I think before I ask Scott to say a couple of words, it would be great if people like the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois would say, please come in and stop the crime. A beautiful young lady was killed the other day, and the father was a very good friend of Dan Scavino. And he took it very hard. Dan took it very hard, like the father, friends. They grew up together. And it's a young lady whose life would be saved if we did what we did as an example in Washington, D.C., which is now a safe city. All the time, people come up to me in the building, people that work here, they say, thank you so much. I know immediately what they're talking about. They're able to walk to work. They walk to work. You all walk to work. Some of you were mugged. I know you told me stories. Some of you were mugged. One person in particular was viciously mugged in the group right here. It's not happening anymore. You have a safe city. Louisiana, the governor of Louisiana called me, can you help me with New Orleans? They just had the Mardi Gras. He said it was the safest Mardi Gras we've ever had. Sounds terrible to say. No murders. You know, it sounds like, who would say this? No murders. But they always had murders. They had a lot of crime during Mardi Gras. He said virtually no crime. We had the troops down there. Memphis, Tennessee, I just got back. We were there. Crime is down 75%. In a short period of time, we're there 5 months. We could do that for Chicago. We could do that for New York. We could do that for LA. And we could do that for, frankly, San Francisco. I know they have a mayor who's trying very hard. He's a Democrat, but he's.
Okay, so I think that's the extent of what we're going to get from that cabinet meeting on the war. I mean, we might get some more updates, but we had Rubio, Witkoff, and Hegseth talk. So now anything else they're going to talk about is likely not going to be as relevant to the war. I mean, it's the same stuff we've heard over the past couple of days from Hegseth, right? We negotiate with bombs. The Iranians better make a deal. The thing that Witkoff said that was interesting to me is it's almost like he apologized for not being able to get a deal done diplomatically. And, you know, Hegseth was kind of, I guess, in a way happy he didn't get a diplomatic deal because that allowed them to really go in, and you could tell how proud Hegseth is of how much they've decimated the military. And I think now Trump is just like, okay, cool. Both you guys kind of got what you wanted. Now we need to get an off-ramp to this. And that begs the question if there is a way to even get to an off-ramp at this point. Video right there, down 2.6. I mean, we're getting a little bit of a green spike now that I think maybe the worst of it has happened, but has the worst happened? Who knows? It's only 11 a.m. We are at the lows of the day, 651.76. Hood's down, Amazon barely green. Nebius, 6% down. If this is off the Bernie Sanders thing, then I don't know if that would meaningfully impact Nebius's business, but perception-wise, high beta in general is getting hit today. As well, Reddit, 8% down. That's off Meta. Guys, the Meta thing is ugly. I understand if people want to buy the dip today. I obviously, I don't think the multiple is scary at buying Meta here. It's just something about this lawsuit is really scaring the street. And I guess you kind of have to understand it to be able to easily buy it. But it did seem like Trump, as much as he's being braggadocious about, Bassent's talking. Okay, we'll go to Bassent. As much as he's bragging about the war, you could tell he's kind of over it, right? And from that perspective, it's like, all right, maybe he wants this thing to end, sooner than later. And it got to the point where he was kind of looking annoyed when Hegseth was talking because he wanted Hegseth to wrap up and just say, okay, cool, we bombed them, and then get to where we would find an off-ramp. Bassent's not talking yet. He's not talking yet. Maybe he's about to, but Bassent is not talking yet. I I don't know what Besant is going to say about this. Maybe he'll talk about the Treasury perspective in terms of the funding. I'll flip over when Besant is talking, but Trump is still 563 on Meta, down 5.3%. The Meta lawsuit is the New Mexico lawsuit. By the way, the thing about the lawsuit is kind of crazy. It's a New Mexico lawsuit around child exploitation that they lost today. Here's something about the lawsuit that it's kind of bizarre that Meta lost the suit. So jurors found that Meta intentionally built addictive social. Like better. Why does every day this happen, bro? It is so annoying. Are we good? Better, better, better. Let me know. Should be better. No, still bad? Still bad? Okay. Hold on. No, good, good. We're good. We're good. Okay. It's getting really annoying. But okay, so jurors found that Meta intentionally built addictive social platforms that harmed a 20-year-old's mental health. The woman known as Kaylee was awarded $6 million in damages, a result likely to have implications for hundreds of similar cases. Meta and Google said separately that they disagreed with the verdict and that they would both appeal. The thing about this that's interesting is, again, this was over a 20-year-old who was not 20 at the time. So you have a lot of people saying this was more so about the parent that ended up just not really being able to monitor what was happening with her kids versus Meta in and of itself building an intentional algorithm. And that's why Meta's going for the appeal, which also, yes, they're paying a parking ticket, but that appeal might allow them to resolve this to an extent, which is why it might be an easy buy the dip. But the market's thinking that the jury's verdict is so intense that it's like, no appeal is going to be able to resolve what's going on right here. I'll try to get some more updates on this Meta case because now the stock is really reacting to it. But wow, Dario. Let me see if we have some statements from Dario on Anthropic. Let's get back to Trump and then we bring a couple of things up.
It's beautiful. Everyone said it's so much more beautiful now. Instead of a cheap, you can't imitate gold. See, I'm a gold person. It's all real stuff. You can't imitate it. Someday they'll discover a paint that will look like gold, and the guy's going to be the richest man in the world. But you can't imitate real gold. Just doesn't. That's 24 karat, which is what this building deserves. But think of it. I get sued because I'm fixing up the Trump Kennedy Center. We're going to make it gorgeous and safe. We're fixing new windows, new this, but just all fix up. I got sued by preservationists. But you know who they didn't sue? The man that took this beautiful Federal Reserve building. That's small, much smaller than the hotel I built. I built the Waldorf Astoria Hotel down the road.
Okay, he's talking about hotels. I thought he'd be talking more about other stuff, but he's talking about hotels. Here's some more updates on this Meta thing. So the trial, which began last month in LA, was the first in a consolidated group of cases that brought against Meta and other companies by more than 1,600 plaintiffs. Outside the courtroom, families who saw their children being harmed by social media embraced and celebrated the verdict, telling reporters that they felt vindicated. So the thing I just read about this woman named Kaylee, who was awarded $6 million, that's one of multiple groups of individuals that have these lawsuits. The Mexico one was the largest at $350 million, that are all going to be getting a couple $1 million from Meta and Google as well. But Meta is the one that the street's reacting to a bit more. The jury decided $2.1 million in punitive damages for Meta, $900,000 for YouTube, totaling $3 million. It's a small fraction of the $1 billion in punitive damages that the plaintiffs' counsel has sought. So I think the market's reacting to a lot more of these lawsuits are coming down the pipe. And look, Meta could pay a couple $1 billion, even a couple tens of billions of dollars, and still be okay. But the broader fundamental problem with the algorithm and the way the algorithm is constructed, I think, is what the street is upset about. And that, I guess, is the reason why it's down 6. I don't think they're going to force them to change the algorithm, but that's the interpretation of this. A lot of you guys think this is not Meta's fault. Well, if you read some of these articles about it as well, I mean, that's why I read the BBC one. I mean, these kids are 18, 17. You're not 12, 13-year-olds. Some of them are. So, when you get to that adult age, 18, 17, 16, maybe your parents have more blame here. At least that's what Meta's claim is. But the jury doesn't want to hear that. And that's why we're still seeing more pain. It's about the precedent. No, it's definitely about the precedent. Even if the precedent opens them up to a lot of lawsuits, does that change the actual algorithms that govern the business? Meta can pay a lot of parking tickets and get away with it. I think the market's thinking it'll change the business. It's about to lose $5.60 right here, 50 cents away, which would be ugly. Yeah, if that's the case, bro, I should be suing YouTube for the amount of harassment I get in the chat every morning. I mean, where's my freaking punitive damage of compensation? The amount of shit I've had to deal with over the past 3 years. Dude, I should be paid $1 billion for some of the stuff I have to put up with, dude. Come on now. Come on now. But look, if it actually affects the algorithm, I think that's the bigger issue.
And it was, if Lutnick is in there, I'll say, oh, I know exactly what Lutnick's got planned. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. They've ripped this gorgeous building apart, and you can never build it again. I could, but it costs a lot of money. But a normal person can never build. So you're gonna have crummy little walls, a flat little ceiling eventually, but right now you don't have anything. And nobody sues this guy. And then when Janine Pirro, working with Pam and others, has the courage to sue to find out what happened to maybe $4 billion at a building that may never be occupied by Kevin Warsh. She may never get there. We're gonna have to find him some space in the White House. We'll put him in the basement of the ballroom. But when, now think of it, when Janine Pirro.
He's talking about the lawsuit that the District Court of Appeals said has no evidentiary basis for J-POW to be sued for the renovation that he did.
Pirro and Pam in the group, when they bring a suit, it's like, oh, this terrible thing. And then we have a judge that attacks us. So we've got to get our priorities straight. You know, it's a very sad thing that's happened with the Fed. And then just one other thing very quickly, you have Gavin Newsom in California Railroad. That's 100 times over budget. It's out of control. It was supposed to go from the middle of San Francisco to the middle of LA. Well, now it stops way short of both. It now goes into areas that nobody ever heard of. It's billions and billions of dollars over budget, years and years, maybe decades late. And that's why we have a country that has a lot of problems. You know, we have incompetent people. It's all people. Think of this, Federal Reserve. I would have had that building done for $25 million. I would have, if I did it, it was up to, somebody else would have done it for more. So maybe 50. But you could have done that building if it was properly done and planned. You would have done that building for, I would have done it for $25 million, and it would be better. It would be better. See this pen right here? This pen is an interesting example. It's the same thing. So this pen is very inexpensive, but it writes well. I like it. But I can't have the pen the way it was. You know what it is. I don't want to give too much publicity, but they do treat me well, Sharpie. So I came here, they have $1,000 pens. And you know, you hand pens out, you're signing and you hand them out, you're handing them to all these people. Sometimes you have 30, 40 people. And they were $1,000 a piece. Beautiful pen, ballpoint. 1,000, it was gold, silver, gorgeous. But I'm handing out to kids that don't even know what they're, what is this, mommy? It's kids. They're getting a pen for $1,000. They have no idea what it is. And I feel guilty because I'm like, you know, I'm by nature, I don't, you know, it's the government. I love the government like I love myself economically. I want to save money. So I'm saying, this is crazy. And it had another problem. They didn't write well. So I take it out and I saw it and there's no ink. And I got all you people looking and you say, there must be something wrong with Trump. And I'm signing and there's no ink in the pen and it costs $1,000. This one, I called the guy. I said, I'd like to use your pen, but I can't have a gray thing with a big S on it saying Sharpie. As I'm signing a $1 trillion airplane contract to buy brand new fighter jets, brand new B-2 bombers, of which we just ordered plenty. I can't do that with the press. Use your pen, but I like the pen the best, but I'll sign it. I could do like Biden did, you know, give it to somebody else to sign or an auto pen, or maybe sign it separately in another room, but I can't use your pen. He said, well, I can make it nicer. I said, what can you do? He said, I'll paint it black. I said, that's nice. And I can even paint the White House on it, sir, if you like, in gold. Almost real gold, not bad. And I can even do your signature, sir. And by the way, this was not staged. I just saw the pen sit there. I thought of this as an example of how $25 million spent by me at the Federal Reserve Building would be a better job than $4 billion that they're spending. And you know, one of the things that Kevin Walsh told me, he said they ripped down the nicest building. I don't know what building they're talking about. They ripped down a building, Scott, right? Kevin Walsh said it's the most beautiful building in Washington. He said the most beautiful space. They ripped it down. Why did they do that? I don't know. Do you know what he's talking about? Is it true?
Yes, sir.
They ripped it down. We have a moron at the Fed. Who wouldn't be lowering interest rates right now? But I want to thank Janine Pirro and Pam and her group for having the courage to bring this suit. And I believe that the contractor on that job is probably one of the richest men in the country right now.
Meta loses 560. Meta getting the brunt of it today. Lowest levels since May of 2025. $35 down on the day. It has lost $80 billion of market cap.
Yeah. I believe that it's not possible to spend that kind of money. 3 billion, 4 billion. Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea what it is. But it's over 3 billion. And it's probably going to be over 4 billion by the time they finish. And it may never get finished. Unless I take it over, I'll get it finished. But it can never be what it was. It's never going to have those beautiful ceilings. It's never going to have those incredible walls. The walls were 1.5 feet thick of solid masonry. They ripped them down for no reason. And I just gave you the story. And just to finish on this one. So I told that story to somebody and said, yeah, but it's not the same thing. I said, you're right. This one is better. It writes. So the guy said to me, you don't have to pay me, sir. I'll give them to you for nothing. I said, no, I don't want that. Let me pay you. I want to pay you. No, sir, you don't have to. You're the president of the United States. He was shocked. The head of Sharpie gets a call. I don't even know who the hell he is. He said, is this really the president? He said, no, you don't have to pay me, sir. This is such an honor. I said, no, I want to pay you. He said, what would you like to pay? I said, how about $5 a pen? He said, that's all right. Whatever the hell we agreed to. Peanuts. As opposed to 1,000. And these were thousands.
He's gone down this whole rabbit hole of a story about the pens and the Sharpies to make the argument that he could have got a better deal for the Fed renovation building himself than J-Pow's $2 billion. That's the whole reason he's been talking about this. That's the punchline over the past 15 minutes.
$1 pens. And we were giving them out. Sometimes, you know, you were there for signings. I'd have 30, 40 people standing behind me. I'd give out 40 pens to people. Then somebody would say, could I have a couple extra? This way I go like this. Here, you want 5? Here, take 5. But the bottom line is, they're better pens. It's a business story. So for $5, could be 0, but for $5, I get a much better pen than for $1,000. And I can hand them out. And actually, they become hot as a pistol. So what can I tell you? With that, could I give it to, please, a man who's done a great job at Treasury? Good luck, Scott.
Well, sir, as always, you're a tough act to follow, but that is very illustrated. Your economic leadership has made our military mission possible. Mr. President, national security, as you always say, is economic security. Your leadership has shown the American people that there is no prosperity without security. That our mighty military on one side, but the U.S. economic strength is fighting off this evil regime. The Iranians believe they are fighting a two-front war. It is the military war that our great warriors are prosecuting. But on the other side, they are trying to take control of the global economy through a choke point that we believe does not exist and that we will overcome. The historic operation at Epic Fury seized a generational opportunity to demolish a regime that has coordinated over 4 decades of global terror and claimed thousands of American lives. Many people, especially the Democrats, underestimate the will of the American people for short-term volatility for 50 years of safety that we are going to have on the other side of this. And I believe energy prices will be lower, inflation will be lower before we had the appearance of security, which is not real security. Now, the American people and the world will have absolute security. Through your maximum pressure campaign, Treasury has worked to uncover all financial lifelines through the regime and cut them off. You gave that order last March. This was not something that happened overnight. This is something that has been contemplated for almost a year. The Iranian financial system collapsed in December. We have systematically weakened Iran's ability to fund operations and procure weapons, and that required months of preparations. Threats to American national security have no place in the global economic system. The oil market is well supplied. We have taken actions to ensure oil supplies stranded at sea are made available to the global market. Your bold actions like the Development Finance Corporation's Maritime Reinsurance Program in conjunction with Central Command will soon provide shippers through the Gulf region with a level of security we have never seen before. Mr. President, we are starting to see more and more movement in and out of the Gulf today, and this is more than yesterday, and this is the beginning. I am confident that shipping traffic will continue to increase on a daily basis, even before we secure the straits. Turning to the home front, the U.S. economy remains strong. We had a strong economy thanks to you. We are the best insulated in the world thanks to your energy efforts in term 1 and term 2. The U.S. is an energy superpower. American workers' purchasing power is finally being restored. The latest figures indicate robust real compensation increases. We are starting to see the working family tax cuts benefits bearing fruit this tax season. 44% of tax returns have claimed at least one of your signature policies: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans. The average tax refund is up more than 10% for working Americans. The economy you vitalized through your pro-growth policies is well positioned to withstand these temporary disruptions. The United States dollar has reasserted itself as a safe haven asset. The US dollar has appreciated since the hostilities began because everyone knows, thanks to your efforts, the US economy is the best position in the world and capital is flowing in. Efforts to reprioritize economic security are ensuring the United States remains secure, resilient, and prepared for the challenges ahead. As we approach the 250th anniversary, America will never be safer and more secure militarily and economically. Thank you.
I just want to ask you a question. Is this guy central casting? I'm looking at him. I'm in Treasury. He might not be so good for war. I don't know. Pretty good. No, I'm looking pretty good too. I'm looking at this guy. He's central casting. Even the glasses are perfect. Where do you get those glasses? I think I'm going to get glasses. That's beautiful. Great job. That's really good. No, he's done a great job.
All right. I think that's it for today. We didn't get anything that new from that cabinet meeting other than negotiations are still going on, and the negotiating with bombs is the continual threat. Meta getting wrecked, down 6, doesn't really have to do with the war, more so with the lawsuit, but the war is not helping. S&P is at least holding 650. It hasn't seen that get taken out yet. You would think it would get taken out with everything Trump said, but maybe that was the extent of the damage, at least for now. We've got about 3-4 hours left in the day. I mean, we'll see if it ends up breaking out. There was not one of those major things Trump said that was like horrible headline. It was just everything he was saying. I think the market's not believing around some potential level of peace, which is why we're still going red. And then obviously oil pumping is not helping. Micron down 4. Nebius getting wrecked, down 7 today. 107.83 down from 130 last week. HIMS is down 1%. Celsius down 1%. Joby down as well. Snapchat got hit with a child grooming lawsuit. So it looks like the regulators are going after Meta, Google, Snapchat, and maybe Reddit. Because Snapchat right here, pretty ugly investigation by the EU on child grooming, very similar to the LA lawsuit with Mexico, with the United States. Or sorry, with Meta, and similar to the New Mexico lawsuit. Snapchat was hit with an EU investigation on Thursday as regulators warned it appears to not be doing enough to prevent child grooming and the sale of illegal goods. Then you got a headline with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is now canceling 2 major construction contracts, according to the Wall Street Journal, which, yeah, makes sense given the refineries have gotten hit. Yeah, Roblox. Well, Roblox already took a 50% haircut. Roblox down 3. This thing was at 150. Now it's at 50. So more than 50% down. But anything that has to do with advertising today, along with AppLovin, getting hit. Oracle can't catch a bid. That's correct. What do people think of the press conference? I think I mean, I don't even know what to say. The reason we were listening to it, we left and we went back to get to Besant, but I didn't know Trump was going to go on a 15-minute rant about Sharpies. But he did, which delayed listening to Besant. I mean, he continues to be mad at JPOW, continues to be mad at the District Court of Appeals for canceling the lawsuit. And then I don't think Besant said anything we didn't know. Hegseth didn't say anything we didn't know. Witkoff was a bit more interesting. And Rubio said the same stuff. I mean, they're saying their message is the same. The market's just not believing it right now, that the war actually has a meaningful chance of coming to an end. And the market shouldn't believe it. Like, we should produce real evidence to make that happen. S&P very close to the low of the day here, down 0.83%. And I guess now it's up for Trump to prove that this is going to come to an end sooner than later. We should talk about what stocks are on sale to load up. Look, once again, I will. Everything's on sale. There's not a question of what's not on sale. Everything is on sale. I'm saying everything hyperbolically, but you get the point. Like, stocks have taken pretty ugly haircuts, not just the Mag 7. We're talking about across the board. There's plenty of names that you can name that are just getting destroyed this year. The question is, do you think we're near a bottom? And I don't know anyone in the right mind that could say, yeah, we're near a bottom, because that you would have to have maximum trust that there's going to be a V-shape after we get a ceasefire, which I think we all agree there will be a recovery after a ceasefire, but the timeline on that ceasefire, who the hell knows? Like, who the hell knows? Iran was at 80 at one point last year. Now it's at 38. Like, the data center thesis is stronger than ever, I could imagine. Why is this stock down 7%? Well, rising oil prices, a war, high beta, like, and that's the same for a lot of different names in the market. Even names that have had a massive run this year are on sale. Sandus was at 750. It's at 630. Micron was almost at 480. It's at 360. Like, if that's not a dip, I don't know what a dip is. But I just feel like, more broadly speaking, this entire market, I mean, Reddit was at 270 at one point last year. It's at 128. That is yes, it's on sale. That does not mean that the war is coming to an end soon, which means, you know, Reddit obviously could go lower along with a lot of other stocks if the war continues. Meta right there, 560, still down 6%. Yeah, Micron 4P in the single digits. This is not a question of looking for deals. The deals are there. This is a question of, do you have the confidence to buy? This is another tariff 2.0 question. Do you have the confidence to buy the dip? And the reason so much of retail had the confidence last year, obviously we thought Trump would not put 85% tariffs on Zimbabwe. Like, retail was just like, no, that's not going to happen. This time it's like, dude, we killed the Ayatollah. We're in a little bit more of a pickle here. And so the sales are there. The question is, do you have the confidence on if Trump pivots? And although he's telling you he's ready to pivot, like quite literally, the market's got to believe that. Sam said I got stopped out of my Micron and Circle longs. Brutal marker for swings. Brutal market for swings. Yes, Circle was up 7% yesterday. Circle today back down 3%. After being down 20% 2 days ago. I mean, dude, Meta's forward PE is now below 20. This is like, there's a company that's going to grow 33% this year. Fastest growing Mac 7 outside of NVIDIA. I just don't fully know if anyone can easily call a bottom here. All right, guys, I think that is it. There will not be a close today because due to the DHS situation in the country, I need to get to the airport 4 hours early. So we are not going to have to close, but that's why we went longer on the open today. Oxy energy stocks are green today. VG, look at Oxy, is up 2%. VG is up. I mean, you also have the private credit headlines that are not helping with this war either. Is the stock market not closing? No, the stock market will close. I just, I won't be there to ring the bell that you guys will mute during that time. But I will be live tomorrow on the market open. It'll be 5:45 California time. Wow, VCX, goodness, 225. That thing was at 572 yesterday. That one's getting wrecked as well. Yeah, Sam, you should do the market close today. VCX down 40% today, dude. Goodness. But yeah, we'll be live tomorrow on the market open. And look, it's an ugly day, but like it is what it is, right? Like we're used to the chop at this point. The covered call is somewhat protecting. Is NVIDIA really going to go below 170? I don't think so. It bounced every time it hit 170. Meta, I didn't expect, but like it's either going to put a bottom here or we're going to lose the 550s. And, you know, we lost the 180s for NVIDIA last week. And so we have some new lows and now we just have to deal with that. Airlines are red. SoFi's been red. A lot of these names have been stuck in a range. Oracle losing everything it got after earnings. Again, Oracle's on sale, 350 to 144. It was at 128 on the Liberation Day lows. It's not that high or above. And that's why I think we get a violent rip if there is a legit ceasefire announced. But until then, yeah, we have to deal with red. All right, cool. Let's do word of the day, and then we'll get out of here. Again, thank you all for joining. We'll be back tomorrow morning. We'll see if we can potentially go a little green towards the end of the day. And then tomorrow's Friday. Yeah, tomorrow we end out the last week of March for 2026. Trump asked on new Iran deadline, I'll announce it. Okay. Is he still live? He is indeed still live. Looks like he just, let's see if I can get that moment. Well, it's less than 48 hours until that deadline. So it looks like we got his quote. He will announce it when it's time.
They haven't gone through anything. Thing that the nursing home business and the nice young man spoke with Russell. Vote.
There are some talks now. Do you have a new deadline before taking?
No, I'll announce it. I mean, right now, you're talking about a deadline for doing some pretty big damage, even bigger than we've done. We'll see. Well, look, we have very substantial talks going on with respect to Iran with the right people. You know, I told you about a present, right? Steve, can I reveal the present?
You can do anything you want.
This is actually a big deal. This is a big deal. He's been talking about this present that Iran gave them. So let's see what it is. He hasn't said it all week.
They said to show you the fact that we're real and solid and we're there. We're going to let you have 8 boats of oil, 8 boats, 8 big boats of oil. This was 2 days ago. And they'll sail up tomorrow. That was 3 days ago. And I didn't think much about it. And then I watched the news and they said, a very good anchor, actually, happened to be Fox. But I watched it and they said, something's unusual happening. There are 8 boats that are going right up the middle of the Hormuz Strait. 8 big tankers are going loaded up with oil right through. And I said, well, I guess they were right, and they were real. And I think they were Pakistani flagged. And
obviously you have about 120 ships go through the strait per day. What do you guys think? I mean, 8 boats of oil is not a ton, but if it's a sign of good faith, is that signaling there is more serious negotiations than what we think? If the Iranians are trying to give something up, or is that the Iranians trying to act like they're in good faith, but in reality, 8 boats is not even reasonable enough to start a negotiation.
I said, well, I guess we're dealing with the right people. And actually, they then apologized for something they said, and they said, we're going to send 2 more boats. And it ended up being 10 boats. And I hope I haven't screwed up your negotiations, but I thought it was appropriate to say, because I did taunt you the other day by saying they're going to give us a present. Yeah, please do.
Okay, I mean, that's actually the most important thing we heard out of that entire press conference. 8 boats, or 10 boats, I should say. 10 boats of oil. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if the markets would interpret that as being kind of bullish. We're not really seeing any green candles there. Market's still down almost 1% on the day, but who knows? Maybe that's a start. Maybe 10 boats of oil is enough for, I mean, if that's a present in the words of the Iranians or the words of Trump to be able to begin the negotiations, then everything the Iranians are saying about, we hate the United States, we don't want to negotiate. Obviously, there's much more serious negotiations happening. Everything Trump is saying about, we're going to kill you, we're going to bomb everything, he's lying too, right? Like, they're both putting up a front, and in the background, they're actually trying to establish some level of diplomatic connections to put an end to this. Maybe. If that's the case, and there is something as a result of that, maybe the market's going to be impressed. If not, then obviously we will continue to deal with some of this pain. All right. I think that was actually probably the most important thing we got from that entire press conference. That's what we got for the day. We'll see how the market reacts by the end. Word of the day is evanescent, quickly fading or disappearing, vanishing like mist. The spike in volatility was evanescent, gone almost as quickly as it appeared. I feel like I've seen this word. I feel like I'm also saying it wrong, but I've definitely seen this word before. Evanescent. I definitely feel like I'm saying this wrong.
Evanescent.
Evanescent. Okay. I see. I've heard this word before. I've heard this word, but at least I wasn't confidently saying it, acting like aplomb, which was a plum yesterday, was the right. So I admit, I had a feeling I would get this wrong, but it's better when I admit it versus I have the confidence, because that's when it just looks worse. All right. The stock market is evanescent. Yes. I guess so. I will see you guys tomorrow morning on the market open, 5:45 California time. Whoever's at the meetup, very, very excited to meet you. And it should be a fun time. We had a bunch of people sign up in the past couple of days, and a lot of the community will be there. Steve, Jason, Chris. If you're in LA, you can still grab some tickets probably by the end of the day. I'll put the link right here in the chat. It'll be fun to see people. And yeah, that's what we got for today. Again, no market close. We'll be live tomorrow morning. And we'll hopefully see if any level of these peace talks materialize enough for the markets to be a bit more excited about what's going on. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. See you guys tomorrow on the market open. And if you're in LA, I will see you there soon as well. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.